Donald Trump's dance back to the Oval Office in the White House. Quite a long speech, considering the first version was 16 minutes long. Sandeep was just telling us this time it's double that particular amount. Carrie Underwood, 2004, 2005 American Idol singer, from that American Idol stage, now making her way to the Rotunda, singing America, the beautiful, a beloved poem across the United States. Those are scenes from this iconic Rotunda that you see on your screens, ladies and gentlemen. United States' 47th President Donald Trump was sworn in just moments before his inaugural speech, and in that speech, several things that the president spoke about. But let's quickly dip in to Carrie Underwood's performance as well.
Skies for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Quickly bring in Ambassador Seth in on the conversation as well. Ambassador, what did you make of the speech that we just heard? He says America's decline is now over. We've got to start protecting our own borders on the Panama Canal. He says we've got to take it back. His application of global leverage seems to be paramount. He says we're going to be stopping wars and try not to be part of any other as well. What did you make of that? Over to you, Ambassador.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was very clear, and before his inauguration, it was very clear that the wars will end, and I think he will make an effort to end those. And of course, he's been talking of America will be great, and I think that was reflected in his speech again. It is America first. It is America, and not manufacturing, American oil, American people, everything. The first priority will be America, and I think he is. As his 100 or whatever number of executive orders he proposes to sign on the very first day, I think that those are also reflective of how the presidency is going to going forward, how it will go. And he is very clear that, of course, he will, want peace, etc. But he will also look at reviving American manufacturing, American. Everything, make America great again, in short, as he has always been saying, during his campaign as well. So I think it's going to be a very, a kind of continuity, but with some change in the overall progress or the overall going forward. And I think it was also, the previous president and vice president were there, and he was very clearly telling them that whatever you have done, has not been in America's interest, I think. So I think that was also a very clear message, including for the wars, climate change, fossil fuels, and also the other immigration was a big, big point during his campaign. I think he's continuing to do that, and illegals especially. I think they will. I think in some ways he's justified also. Because in your country is not very. So I think he will go after that after them as well.
All right. Julia Milnikova, also with us on the broadcast, Program Manager, Russian International Affairs Council. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Shri, I'm going to bring you in very quickly. He talks about the first thing that he did talk about, and people were already talking about the executive orders that the president is going to be signing upon. He talks about the emergency on the southern border. That's the first thing he picks up, and then he talks about 1789's Alien Act, about how drug cartels got to go down. That's his prime focus, and the borders has been giving us hints about the same as well.
Right. So, Kabir, if you're an average American listening to your 47th president's speech, inaugural speech, there's nothing that you're not going to love about it. So what is Trump really promising them? He's first promising them secure borders. Second, he's promising them end of wokeism, which to his mind and to his advisors' mind, like Elon Musk, it has done great damage to the American society. Then he's talking about bringing inflation down. Then he's talking about allowing baby drill, he said. So he's going to bring down energy cost. Then he's talking about restoring the American supremacy, the sovereignty, the pride. So there's absolutely nothing in his speech which you're not going to love as an average American. And I don't blame him, because that's the whole premise on which he's been elected. And I think even if he delivers half of what he's promising, I think we'll see a very robust and strong economy, at least over the next 4 years, and which might probably lay the foundation for a very strong economy going forward, even into the next decade, Kabir.
You're absolutely right. Julia, I want to take this next question to you. The president also spoke about how he wants the stripes and the stars on Mars as well. And, right next to Baron Trump, you had Elon Musk, who was smiling at that aspect as well. I mean, of course, the Russian Space Agency and, of course, Vladimir Putin, all glued to their TV screens listening in to Donald Trump as well. How do you think the other half of the world is reacting to this inaugural ceremony that we're beaming live across the world?
Well, definitely the US is the only country in the world that can make the whole global community watch the inaugural ceremony. I caught myself watching it with great interest, although it's pretty lengthy, and I think it's difficult to imagine yourself watching something else happening in an entirely another country for that long of a time. Speaking about the space ambitions, well, I think that the inaugural speech is usually full of the ambitions of the incoming president, because, well, this is the show, and this is the show that he has to deliver for the domestic audience first, for the audience that had chosen him, for people who had given their voices to him, so who elected him, actually, who brought him to power. So this is the reason why the domestic issues were brought in first. This is the reason why populist issues like renaming the Panama Canal were brought in first. The Mexican Channel, sorry, were brought in first. And this is why the spacecraft ambitions were bring into the fore. And also because of the fact that Elon Musk, as you know, is the closest friend and ally to President Trump during his second term in power. So these things were made public in order to impress the audience, in order to show to the audience that they didn't vote in vain. But of course, the real work will start when the president is back to the Oval Office and when the president is back to regular business. And this is when we will hear, I think, less beautiful phrases and less beautiful projects with regard to both the conflicts continuing all around the world and other things like that.
Fair enough. Pertinent points you've made there, Julia. Just to tell the viewers, what's happening on screen is that this is an interfaith ceremony, Donald Trump's inaugural ceremony, and you've got Rabbi Ari Berman, you've got Imam Hashim Al-Hussein Sewell, and Reverend Father Frank Mann. That's what's happening on air. We're going to have to slip it to a very quick commercial breather. You won't even know we're gone. Ambassador Julia Itai, many thanks for patiently waiting with us. We're going to be back in just a second. This is the rolling coverage of Donald Trump's inaugural ceremony. Don't go anywhere.
You work too hard. Work smart like me.
Why? Won a lottery, is it?
You can say so. I'm investing in a great scheme in the share market. High returns guaranteed.
Your high returns aren't Karan Arjun for them to definitely come to you.
Meaning?
That there's risk involved in the share market. Nobody can promise guaranteed high returns. It's illegal to do so.
Really?
Yeah.
सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर।
We made history for a reason tonight.
Will it change the shape of American foreign policy? Violence has erupted in Manipur once again. How can we pass judgment, sir, before any inquiry that, they were volunteers or militants, sir?
In the chaos of battle, one weapon stands as a silent reaper of the battlefield. It can kill at ranges of over 3 kilometers. Just one precise shot can shatter enemy lines, disrupt entire formations, and tip the scales of war. This is a weapon born in Bharat, and it's crafted to take on the best in the world. This is the SSS Defense Sabre, and you're watching Guns of India.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
If it's a cancer, then what?
It's very distressing.
Anyone can have cancer.
Mentality है कि ये बीमारी मुझे नहीं हो सकती.
There's a thing called cancer is right inside me.
सबसे पहले जो होता है ना, डर जो होता है कि now it's the end of the world.
My life went upside down.
Stigma associated with it, which is very scary.
In our country, more than 14 lakh people get diagnosed with cancer every year. Out of that, more than 9 lakhs die every year because of cancer.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Valuations can be frothy.
Going public is almost like what some of us would like to say is the holy grail, right?
IPOs are a trend, not a bubble.
Do secondary markets exist? Answer is absolutely yes, and it's been around for a very long time.
Valuations could be high or low, and valuations may correct over time, but IPOs are here to stay.
It is basically a graduation ceremony of sorts. It is potentially where a startup stops being a startup and starts becoming an enterprise.
The IPO space has just started in the past 24 months. The startup ecosystem has been around for 15 years.
Fundamentally, if you have a strong business and you have predictability of cash flows and you can actually give with a fair degree of confidence where the business is headed, the market will reward you.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
India spends $75 billion on foreign cargo vessels.
$75 billion per annum. That's a lot of money.
Imagine a situation where 95% of our cargo is coming on ships which are not owned by us. If we are still not prepared, if someone were to say that we are not going to give you ships, then we'll be stuck. So the entire nation's economy is at risk.
We are very clear that shipping is also strategic, because without that you can't really be the third largest economy in the world.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Your promise is IGI certified. Your ambition is IGI certified. 14-step grading process. 50 years of trust. IGI Trust Certified.
I will take you to Paris. Paris नहीं, Paris. तुम्हारा pronunciation भी ना, तुम्हारे इरादे की तरह. मैडम इरादे कभी ऑफ नहीं होते, टेक ऑफ करते हैं।
SBI लाइफ स्मार्ट प्लैटिना सुप्रीम के गारंटीड रिटर्न से करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे। SBI लाइफ, अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए।
From the highlands of Afghanistan to the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts of Africa, to street battles in Mosul, the AK-47 has dominated every conflict. But what if it could be made even better? Enter the SSS Defense P-72, India's answer to the AK-47. So how good is it? Let's find out.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
We are at the highest airfield in India and one of the highest airfield in the world. It is the most beautiful airfield in India. There's no aircraft that cannot land on this airfield.
This will be the highest airfield in India and 5th in the world.
This particular runway will cater for most of the military aircraft, fighters and transport landing.
A strategic edge to the forces, deterrent for our neighboring countries.
Jai Hind.
Yes, 100% completion. TV9 News and your News9 Plus is the first team here.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people. Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest. Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
Understanding for those whom they represent. May they be beacons of hope in
rolling coverage of Donald Trump's inaugural ceremony. Just a short while ago, U.S. Supreme Court Chief of Justice John Roberts administered the oath to the 47th President, Donald J. Trump. Right now, the benediction that's being read out, this is an interfaith one, but with me on the broadcast is Ambassador Manju Seth, Julia Melnikova, Itai Melchwa is with us on the broadcast as well, my colleagues Sandeep and Sri also with me here in the studio. We were just listening into the first speech by the 47th US President, Itai. I'm going to come to you next. We've just looked at that ceasefire that took place in Gaza as well, about 3 to 3.5 hour delay in that ceasefire as well, but the first hostages, how the families were, that joyous moment, jubilation in the Gaza Strip as well. And Donald Trump goes on to say, I'm going to be a peacemaker. We're going to be a unifier. We're going to be stopping wars, not starting new ones.
Recognizing that together we can overcome any adversity. Grant us the strength to endure.
Itai, are you with us? That question was for you.
Yes, sorry, I didn't see there was a question here. I had actually prepared a checklist for the speech, and I have to say that everything that was on the list was said, besides two things, and a few extra things made it in, like the Mars issue, the crime and declaring the gangs to become hostile organizations, and those are things that, and the free speech issue. All the other issues were there. What I didn't find, one, was any reference to the healthcare program, but even more than that, to international affairs. The only thing mentioned was the hostages being released, And he mentioned enemies who will be deterred and wars that will not be fought, but there was no reference to any specific war, any conflict, and there are many of them happening in the world currently. We know he's going to deal with that. I think that his speech was mainly for American ears. Remember that in the end, he, despite being elected with a big majority, one of the bigger majorities of recent elections, there is a lot of many people in the US who are afraid from his upcoming term. He's declaring war on many things which are dear to many Americans: DEI, environment, immigration, and many people are afraid, and I think he was trying to appease mainly the local Americans, not really delving into international affairs.
You know, another pertinent point is, Sandeep, I'm going to take this next question to you. Of course, do you concur with what Itai was here talking about? Because behind those braggadocio statements, you know, of boastfulness and arrogance, is there uncertainty that, you know, people are now fearful of talking about now that, you know, Donald Trump has been sworn in as the 47th president? Of course, immigration, the green agenda that he wants to completely roll back. The uncertainty, is it being masked by this, you know, this arrogance of Donald Trump that we see on air?
There was absolutely no uncertainty, Kabir. I think it's with Donald Trump, what you see is what you get, and that's what he's just said in that inaugural address of his, a half hour of what he plans to do in the next 4 years, and he's very clear on what he's plans to do, and there's no surprises over here. Everything right down from tearing up the climate change accords to the war on the DEI and Make America Great Again. All of these are known knowns. There wasn't any surprise to my mind. And I think if there is one, it was the war on the drug cartels, which he's declared as a enemy organization, a foreign terrorist organization. And this just reminds me of that Tom Clancy novel called Clear and Present Danger, in which the United States military does war on the Colombian drug cartels, and 3 decades later you have, life imitating art. So that's Donald Trump for you. What you see is what you get. But the essential character of his speech is exactly what he's been saying for so many months. No surprises whatsoever. Right from the Make America Great Again to the Make America Drill Again, which is drill baby drill. He plans to resume drilling in the United States, and he's thrown the book at diversity and DEI and the gender. The number of, he just focused on 2 genders. All these are agenda points that have been discussed for several months. So there's been no radical departure, there's no great change, there's no surprise. I would be surprised, for instance, if Trump didn't say anything or he didn't make any policy decisions over here. But, right from this morning, we've been seeing all of these, pronouncements, all these executive decisions floating around on Truth Social, and they're being discussed on, X as well. So nothing that Trump said today is any surprise. I mean, they would have probably been surprising some months ago, if possibly at the start of his campaign. But now we've kind of know what to expect from Donald Trump. It's been several months now, and this is exactly what he's planned to do all along. And I think the big thing that you mentioned as well, Kabir, is the fact that a lot of these agenda points are Elon Musk's as well. So it's a meeting of minds. It's a meeting of Elon Musk, and it's a meeting of Donald Trump, and that's what you see here on full display.
But I can't help wonder what one particular man must be making of Donald Trump's speech, especially when he talks about not getting into wars that are none of United States business. So since we have Julia with us, Julia, what do you think is going through the mind of Ukraine President right now, Volodymyr Zelensky? What do you think he's making of this speech today?
Well, for President Zelensky, one thing is key, to secure that he continues getting military aid and monetary aid. Like, both money and military equipment. Of course, for him, this is a warning sign, but we shouldn't take what President Trump says literally. So if President Trump wants to abstain himself or make the US abstain itself a little bit more from the Ukrainian crisis, it by no means implies that European allies of the United States, NATO allies, will abstain themselves from the conflict whatsoever as well. So for President Trump, the key idea of resolving the conflict, or at least making himself sound as a peacemaker, would be to delegate the Ukrainian crisis to his European allies, because it will both solve the European allies' problem that they are not that particularly contributing, as he used to say during his first speech, to their common idea of the rules-based order. So this will be one thing that he may achieve through delegating Ukrainian conflict to them. And another issue that he will be able to achieve is unifying the allies to implement joint objectives the way President Trump sees them, be that against China, be that against some other nations, because if the allies unite around Ukraine, which they have already done, and if they are capable of implementing joint foreign policy by themselves, by their own money, then they will be able to do it elsewhere as well. So for Trump, it will kill two rabbits, as we say. So he will be able to spend less money on Ukraine. He will be able to delegate the conflict and do something else elsewhere. But he will also be able to keep European allies united and a strong ally of the United States. So here we shouldn't hear him literally, and we shouldn't interpret his words as a literal abstention from the conflict.
All right. Julia spoke about the allies, and I think we've also joined by Pramit Pal Chaudhary, Foreign Affairs Analyst, Eurasia Group, joining us live from New Delhi. A very warm welcome to you, Pramit. What about the allies that Julia just spoke about? I mean, we were just discussing what might be going through the mind of, Volodymyr Zelensky. But what about all the other NATO members as well? Donald Trump using this transactional trade as bargaining chips to get his way on the negotiation table?
In this speech, that despite reports that he might do so, was that he actually didn't announce any tariffs. He spoke in praise of tariffs. He spoke of the need to, that he plans to use them, and we're pretty certain he will. But he didn't actually announce any, despite reports that he had actually gone through the legal process of drafting such actions. So very clearly, he's now planning to use this as leverage. He's going to go off. There are reports already he plans to have a trip to China and possibly India very soon, and he will use those tariffs as bargaining chips. I think he's in many ways putting together all of the negotiating leverage points that he can. For China, you can see he's got TikTok in his mind, he's got the tariffs and so on, and putting those together. Europe doesn't really come into this picture. He's probably been pointed out that legally he can't actually do that much in Europe anyway, and they don't run as massive a trade deficit with the United States as China does. We'll see how he thinks about India. But I was striking the tariffs were not actually imposed, just mentioned, praised. But that's nothing new with Trump. The only country I think that should be genuinely nervous is Panama, because he has actually put that in his inaugural address, that he thinks the Panama Canal should be taken back, if you wish. And by citing a national threat in the form of Chinese control and usage, he can, it seems, and I'd have to check this to be fair, the Panama Canal Treaty does have a national security clause. It has been until now, it's been assumed the Panama Canal, like his claims on talk about Greenland and Canada, was really just rhetoric. But it seems he's taking that quite seriously since he's put it in his inaugural address. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Also with us on the broadcast is Jeff Ballabon, Senior Counsel for International and Government Affairs, American Center for Law and Justice, joining us live from Jerusalem. Very warm welcome to you. And Matthew Law also with us, CEO, Corvus Communications, live from Washington, D.C. Jeff, I'm going to come to you very quickly. Picking up from where Pramit left us. The Gulf of Mexico, his application of global leverage as well. He spoke about Gulf of Mexico is going to be named Gulf of America. He's going to take Panama back. What about the West Asian region and now Donald Trump at the helm of affairs in the United States?
Well, I think that he didn't spend a lot of time talking about other countries because he really wants to be an America-centric president. And what that means is his view of other countries, no matter where they are on the globe, is going to be first and foremost how it impacts the United States of America. And there's going to be a priority list, safety and security first, economy second, and a series of other things after that. But that's really the primary set of issues he's going to care about and focus on. And I think he did talk about an external revenue service, which got a lot of gasps and laughs and applause, including here in Jerusalem, where I was watching it with a big crowd. Which also, by the way, I'll say there was a lot of applause during his speech here in Jerusalem on many fronts. And that there's the social fabric of other nations will actually matter to him. But first and foremost, it's going to be what's right and what's good for America. And he said he wants to be a peacemaker and a unifier. I think that starts, again, in America first, but that's true for the whole world. And again, just because I'm in Jerusalem, I'll mention it. His enormous success with the Abraham Accords and bringing a warm and real peace with countries that people thought it was impossible to, and a normalization and peace for Israel, I think that people are waiting for an Act 2 now that will be greater than even the first one.
Well, all right. Matthew Law also with us live from Washington, D.C. Jeff was just telling us how, people are applauding the president's speech in Jerusalem. I know the crowd sitting at the Capital One Arena broke into a rapturous applaud as well. But Washington, D.C., people on the ground sticking to the television screens in their drawing rooms as well. What was some of the, important portions that you thought Donald Trump spoke about? He said, God saved me for a reason. Everybody stood up, started applauding, apart from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, of course.
Speech, a little bit more modest in tone, oddly, than his first one that he did 8 years ago. But it was a really interesting speech, very America first president. No mention of other countries, really, as we've already talked about. And then you had those big American CEOs behind him from the tech companies, which was an interesting statement as well. You also you see him talk about American ingenuity, about going to Mars and planting the stars and stripes on Mars. That was a big statement as well. So maybe he was trying to emulate some other presidents too, like President Kennedy and others, to set really big goals and agendas for America as a whole.
That's actually right. Shri, because Donald Trump also mentioned McKinley. He spoke about how he was, pivotal when the Panama Canal was being built as well. But when you're looking at Donald Trump, like Matthew pointed out, a modest Donald Trump compared to what we saw back in the day, from 16-minute speech to now 29-minute speech. All the adjectives that people were talking about, disruptor in chief, fast and furious Donald Trump unplugged. His Donald Trump set out on this motion to show the world that over the next 4 years, I'm a changed man. And can we see the learning curve from what Donald Trump was in his previous term and this time around?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah, he's
my bad. My apologies. If you want to answer that, you can, Matthew.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's a much more disciplined leader this time. You see that with the 100 and plus executive orders that are coming out in the first day. The teams that have been set up, they're much more disciplined here in Washington this time than the last time around. So you see those the ground troops, those people they have lined up to implement policy as a whole. So they're looking to be very aggressive in these first days, and you see that as a very different and changed person from who he was 8 years ago.
Well, Shri, I need your viewpoint on that as well. Even as we're looking at these visuals, seems to be, the National Mall at the Capitol ramparts as well. People now making a beeline to exit the rotunda as well. I think a military review is something that's still left, signing off, those executive orders. That's also what people are waiting for in terms of visuals to come out. But Shri, your viewpoint on the question I just asked.
So without doubt, this is a far more confident Donald Trump that we are witnessing in the White House. and the fact that he has chosen to populate his team with the people that he wants to. Look at the number of China Hawks, for example, which are there in the team. The Department of Government Expenditure, DOGE, which he's given Trump, Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy in charge of. So he is not going to be circumscribed by inexperience, his relative unfamiliarity with the DC politics. He talked of draining the swamp in the first term. But this is a Trump who obviously knows his way around Washington DC much better than he did before. And I think he also in some sense meant what he said, is that God saved me for a reason. Perhaps he truly believes in that his calling now is to make America great again. And as the President of United States, I don't see any reason why he should think differently, except that the route which he takes and how realistic is it. For example, he talked of tariffs. He says that the most beautiful word in the English dictionary is tariff. Now, is he really going to be able to put tariff on other countries and bring down inflation that he talks about? I think that's arithmetically impossible, and I think there is enough evidence and research which indicates that usually tariff hikes are met by retaliatory hikes by other countries, and eventually it impacts the economy. GDP comes down without the consumers actually benefiting. So I think his intentions are right. Whether the means he's chosen to achieve those objectives, whether those are the best possible solutions or options for America, that remains to be seen. But I think things will play out over the next 100 days. We'll know which direction he's going to take. And obviously this is going to be his last shot at presidency. He's not going to come back again. So I think he wants to make a mark, and probably he hinted at being a peacemaker. So maybe leave the White House with a Nobel Prize in his hand, Kabir.
Well, absolutely. You know what, gentlemen and the panelists, do stay on. Let's quickly play out the exact portion when Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States.
अपने खुद के वेंचर के लिए ये मसल नहीं, फाइनेंशियल मसल चाहिए।
लाइफ को शेप में लाने का परफेक्ट प्लान, कैनरा HSBC लाइफ इंश्योरेंस सेविंग्स प्लान। कैनरा HSBC लाइफ इंश्योरेंस, प्रॉमिसेस का पार्टनर।
Mama must be missing us, na?
Let's get you on bed, give me one day. Feel the itch under my skin, it's a one day. You been like it when you see we are done, hey. It doesn't matter, just gotta get going.
New GT line, Taigun and Virtus. Volkswagen.
I will take you to Paris.
Paris नहीं, Paris. तुम्हारा pronunciation भी ना, तुम्हारे इरादे की तक।
मैडम, इरादे कभी ऑफ नहीं होते, टेक ऑफ करते हैं।
SBI Life Smart Platina Supreme के guaranteed return से करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे। SBI Life, अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए।
We made history for a reason tonight.
Will it change the shape of American foreign policy? Violence has erupted in Manipur once again. How can we pass judgment, sir, before any inquiry that, they were volunteers or militants, sir?
In the chaos of battle, one weapon stands as a silent reaper of the battlefield. It can kill at ranges of over 3 kilometers. Just one precise shot can shatter enemy lines, disrupt entire formations, and tip the scales of war. This is a weapon born in Bharat, and it's crafted to take on the best in the world. This is the Triple S Defense Sabre, and you're watching Guns of India.
This and more. Streaming on News9, plus subscribe and get free vouchers.
Joining us live from Washington, D.C. is the Executive Director of the Observer Research Foundation America, Dhruva Jaishankar. Thank you very much, Dhruva, for joining us at a very short notice. But you are witnessing these historic visuals coming in from the Capitol Hill. Your first thoughts, really, and of course, if you would comment on the future of the India-US relations. We have had a continuity. We have had, of course, a bipartisan support as well. But Modi and Trump have had a bonhomie as well, particularly on trade and immigration. How do you think the immediate future negotiation would be like?
Well, I think, first of all, we're seeing the, live pictures of the inauguration ceremony happening in the Capitol right now. The Vice President-elect J.D. Vance has just been introduced. Trump will follow shortly, and you see a kind of stellar cast of characters there in the background watching in attendance, including from the tech sector, a lot of US CEOs. But increasingly, quite unusually, for the first time really, we have foreign visitors as well, officials from different countries. Largely, a lot of attention on Chinese participation. The Vice President of China, who is ranked 7th in the Politburo Standing Committee, is in attendance. A lot of other elected and opposition politicians from other countries who are ideologically aligned with Trump. So Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is there. From Italy, Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, but also, of course, the Quad foreign ministers are there as a signal of the strategic importance of these relationships, including India. So I think that is an early indication that the Trump administration is keen on developing a positive relationship with India and will take forward these strategic relations. Now, you alluded to some differences, and I think those differences will come to the fore in the immediate weeks and months, perhaps even days. So we'll have differences over trade and tariffs. Trump believes that India enjoys a large trade deficit, trade surplus with the US. The US has a trade deficit with India, and that he wants to fix that, and he will use tariffs amongst other tools as a negotiating tactic to, in his view, get more equitable terms. A second issue, as you mentioned, is on immigration, both undocumented migrants from India and other countries, and also legal, reforming. This will take longer and be a bit more difficult, but reforming some of the legal architecture around legal migration from India and many other countries to the US. So these issues will have direct implications for India. I anticipate some very tough negotiations in the weeks and months ahead. But on balance, I think the view is one of cooperation. And as you're seeing footage, President-elect Donald Trump has now been introduced, and he will be taking his oath shortly.
All right, we are getting visuals of Donald Trump actually entering the Capitol Hill, and a few minutes from now, the official ceremony would be beginning. But Dhruva, if I can quickly come to you, two other points that India would be closely looking at is, of course, the continuity in Quad. We had this, photograph coming in immediately from the Capitol Hill with the Indian Foreign Minister with his counterparts from Australia, Penny Wong, and Japan as well. How do you see this continuity in Quad? What new things could we expect in a year where New Delhi is going to host the Quad Summit? And of course, quickly on Elon Musk as well. When do we see him in New Delhi?
I don't have immediate answers, particularly to the second one. What I think is interesting is that the nominee for Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has made the Quad his first order of business. So he's expected to have a meeting tomorrow, Tuesday, with the first, really his first official engagement, and he's expected to be confirmed as Secretary of State later today, will be with the Quad. And so I think it shows really a high priority that they're placing on the Quad. Now, what issues the Quad will focus on under Trump remains to be seen. I expect there'll be some continuity with what Biden has done, but many areas of disruptions, perhaps a more explicit maritime focus, perhaps some issues like clean energy will go lower down the agenda if they're on the agenda at all. So I think the first meeting will really be to see what areas of commonality and interest will emerge within the Quad. On Elon Musk, he actually hosted a delegation of Indian businesses, Indian CEOs just a few days ago. And so I think that indicates to him a high degree of interest in engaging with India and looking for business opportunities in India. So I expect he will come, but he has such diversified business interests, whether it's Tesla, SpaceX, X, Twitter. Which areas he sees the most interest? Obviously, from India's point of view, part of Make in India is to focus on manufacturing. So I think that's where India will want to see a lot. But I expect the next 1 to 2 years will be a very promising time for US-India space cooperation in general, and so SpaceX will be at the forefront of that.
If it's a cancer, then what?
It's very distressing.
Anyone can have cancer.
Mentality है कि ये बीमारी मुझे नहीं हो सकती.
There's a thing called cancer is right inside me.
सबसे पहले जो होता है ना, डर जो होता है कि now at the end of the world.
My life went upside down.
Stigma associated with it, which is very scary.
In our country, more than 14 lakh people get diagnosed with cancer every year. Out of that, more than 9 lakhs die every year because of cancer.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Valuations can be frothy.
Going public is almost like what some of us would like to say is the holy grail, right?
IPOs are a trend, not a bubble.
Do secondary markets exist? Answer is absolutely yes, and it's been around for a very long time.
Valuations could be high or low, and valuations may correct over time, but IPOs are here to stay.
It is basically a graduation ceremony of sorts. It is potentially where a startup stops being a startup and starts becoming an enterprise.
The IPO space has just started in the past 24 months. The startup ecosystem has been around for 15 years.
Fundamentally, if you have a strong business and you have predictability of cash flows and you can actually give with a fair degree of confidence where the business is headed, the market will reward you.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
From the highlands of Afghanistan to the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts of Africa, to street battles in Mosul, the AK-47 has dominated every conflict. But what if it could be made even better? Enter the SSS Defense P-72, India's answer to the AK-47. So how good is it? Let's find out.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Donald Trump took oath as the 47th President of the United States for his second term at a glittering ceremony in Washington. Says America's golden age now begins. From Modi, Netanyahu to Putin, world leaders have congratulated Donald Trump on becoming the 47th US President. Donald Trump signed series of executive orders to curb immigration, roll back environmental regulations, withdraw from the Paris climate deal, and declare illegal immigration a national emergency, and much more. Trump signed an executive order to withdraw from the ambitious Paris Agreement on climate change, a fulfillment of a campaign promise. President Donald Trump also signed an order for the US to exit the World Health Organization, which he had previously attacked over its COVID response. Mumbai police, along with the accused Mohammad Shariful Islam Shehzad, leave from Saif Ali Khan's residence after recreating the crime scene. Saif likely to be discharged from hospital today. And movie Kantara 2 lands in fresh trouble. Actor Rishabh Shetty's film has been accused of damaging forests with explosives, harassing locals as well.
We won! We won!
This is the best day ever. I'm excited to see Trump back.
And hopefully we get a chance to see him participate in victory celebration.
I'm thrilled to be back. We are going to make America great again.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Tuesday morning. You're watching News 9 with me, Sakshi Singh Litoria. Top focus continues to remain on Trump 2.0 and, as he says, make America great again. Here are all the developments that we have picked up as far as his inauguration and his oath is concerned. Let's take a deeper dive into what all Trump has said. Donald J. Trump was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, marking a stunning comeback after 4 years in political exile. On the day one of his return to the White House, President Donald Trump has rolled out a first wave of executive orders, delivering on promises from the campaign trail and setting a bold new direction for his administration. Among the sweeping measures is the deployment of troops to the southern border, declaring it an effort to stop what he calls the quote-unquote illegal immigrant invasion. Trump also formally classified drug cartels as terrorist organizations, escalating the fight against cross-border crime. Now, in a move that has drawn global attention, Donald Trump announced that the Gulf of Mexico will now be referred to as the Gulf of America and also vowed to take back the Panama Canal. Turning to domestic policies, the president declared a state of emergency in the energy sector to stimulate production and reduce reliance on foreign energy sources. He also signed an executive order committing to the freedom of speech, aiming to end what he describes as state censorship. One of the most controversial orders, though, involves an official announcement in recognizing only two genders, male and female, as part of US policy, sparking immediate backlash from activists and legal experts. These actions accompany Trump's earlier declaration of a national emergency at the border and his pledge to end birthright citizenship and quote-unquote catch and release. Now, with these sweeping changes, the Donald Trump administration is signaling a transformative agenda, reshaping immigration, energy, and even America's stance on global and social issues. The world is watching closely as this new era under Trump 2.0 now unfolds.
I don't think they will. I don't think they can be. They're very straight up.
Why don't you take that and go over here? Could you get him over here, not on the side angle? You mind? Just go right over here with your friends. Okay?
Sir, this is an executive order.
Foreign policy is a big statement. I mean, my priority on foreign policy, it's going to be to keep America safe. Very simple. It's a big question, though. That's a very big question.
Who is going to be the first foreign leader that you plan to meet, or who are you going to call tomorrow on your first day?
I've already been meeting people. I've been meeting them. I've been talking to them. I met with Prime Minister Trudeau, like all Governor Trudeau. I met with numerous foreign leaders.
News9's Shiva Sharma is joining us live from Atlanta. Shiva, thank you so much for joining us. This series of executive orders coming in from Donald Trump, how well are they going to go down with the Americans? How exactly are they looking at?
Good morning, Sakshi. As soon as the sworn in, the Donald Trump, in the speech, he said he's going to cancel many of the orders given by Joe Biden administration. And also he continued, free of speech, they will improve, on X or Facebook, the content filtering was happening, during against Trump. So this is going to control, that is what indirectly he said about free speech. Also, he mentioned the education improvement needs to be done in the education field. So it is not clear yet whether it is the college education, many of the Indians, Chinese comes here, in terms of that education or schooling education, it is not clear yet. And also he mentioned about all oil manufacturing, that is called a drill baby drill. So once the energy comes, the oil comes, we can sell it and we can reduce the prices in US and people will get lower prices, whatever their groceries. That is what he mentioned. Also he mentioned there are so many states, the law and order is not well at all. If anybody comes into the stores and they loot the store worth of below $1,000, no case will be filed and nothing will happen to those thieves. So those kind of laws, he is going to take out, and the law and order will definitely he is going to strengthen. And also you mentioned about gender policy. There are only two genders, male and female. Okay, so that is also is very clear. And the main point is illegal immigrants. The first agenda is to catch the illegal immigrants and deport from this country. So whether it is from Mexico side, whether it is Canada side, he is not going to spare. It's also there's information Trump might take the military support to find out the illegal immigrants in this country, because it is very, very difficult to catch illegal immigrants who are staying in this country. So that is one thing. And also he said there is a lot of benefits, the government is going to do for automobile industry, whether it is the electrical car, whether it is the petrol cars, anything. The main thing is, one more thing, during election he also said Gulf of Mexico, they will rename to Gulf of America. Today also in the meeting, he mentioned that, we are renaming the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. Also he said healthcare needs to be improved. The Obamacare is not good at all. So we will work on the Obamacare. In his last term, the majority was not there. So that's the reason. So he actually he could not do anything about Obamacare, but this time definitely he is going to do. So it is very, very clearly saying within few days, many things, we will come to know once papers comes out.
Absolutely. Shiva, would request that you please stay with us, because let's hear what Donald Trump has to say about Greenland and Canada, and of course Panama Canal, how he has emphasized on taking it back. Let's listen in.
Greenland is a wonderful place. We need it for international security. And I'm sure that Denmark will come along. I think it's costing them a lot of money to maintain it, to keep it. The people of Greenland are not happy with Denmark, as you know. I think they're happy with us. We had representatives, my son and representatives went up there 2 weeks ago, and they like us. So we'll see what happens. But Greenland is necessary, not for us, it's necessary for international security. You have Russian boats all over the place. You have China boats all over the place, warships.
Shiva, we heard what Donald Trump has to say. He said that Greenland is important for us for international security, right? But apart from that, let's also speak about US's relationship with Canada and Trump's stance on that, be it Canada, Greenland, or, be it the Panama Canal that he has also mentioned in his oath. It does look like they have a very friend and enemy, the frenemies kind of relationship. Is that not going to put NATO at a tough spot?
Yeah, so let's talk about Denmark, the Greenland. So Trump is very serious about taking the Greenland, whatever money Denmark asks for, because they can America can control Russia and China, and also Greenland is very key source in terms of natural resources. So in case if they buy that land, so America can invest anything to buy that land, and the natural resources are very high. So they can again regenerate their whatever the investment they they're going to do now. That is one fact. Another one is Panama. So Panama basically that canal is constructed by America and gave it to Panama. So but nowadays, from last few years, Hong Kong-based companies they constructed big ports near the Panama Canal, and then China is slowly occupying, in that area. So probably in next 10-20 years, China might take Panama Canal the control. So that US never wanted to do it, and it looks like there are some clause. There are while handing over the Panama Canal to Panama. So US made some rules that we don't know yet what kind of rules they made it. So they are going to take it back. That is what they said. In case if they don't agree, even they are ready to take military action too. So that is very clearly they are saying now.
Absolutely. Shiva, please stay on. Let's listen into what Donald Trump has to reiterate about that ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine as well.
We're going to try and get it done as quickly as possible.
Do you want to push Israel and Saudi
It should have
Arabia?
never started. The war with Ukraine and Russia should have never started. It would have never started if I were president.
Right, Shiva, it's another crucial point that Donald Trump has actually made ever since he entered Oval Office yesterday. Let's also talk about what is his stance, because we heard from Putin, he congratulated Donald Trump for coming back to the office, but at the same time, Donald Trump has something else to say to Putin.
So definitely, he mentioned within 24 hours, he will stop that war, because Trump basically is a businessman. These wars and all, it is not going to help any humans, across the globe. So the wars needs to be stopped. So that is what his main agenda. So he will sit with Putin and the Ukraine president. So both sides, he is going to talk, and definitely he is going to stop within few weeks. That is, we can say definitely it is going to happen.
Definitely, Shiva. Let's also hear from Donald Trump what he has to say about Saudi as well as Israel too.
I don't think I have to push him. I think it's going to happen, but maybe not quite yet. But it'll end up being in the Accords, the Abraham Accords.
President Trump,
I think Saudi Arabia will end up being in the Abraham Accords.
this year?
Could be, but soon. Not in a very.
Shiva, so looks like Donald Trump is quite rest assured about bringing back the normalcy between Saudi and Israeli as well. He said that it will be achieved very soon.
That's true. So he is, though clearly it is indicating he's supporting Israel, but before he's taking oath, he clearly mentioned that the whoever Israeli citizens with in the Gaza, so they needs to come back. Otherwise, we will take the military action, and it's never before, never after, like something like that. Okay, so that is what he mentioned very clearly. So now the Saudi Arabia, Gaza areas also, they are going to come to a deal.
Definitely. Shiva, let's also hear from US President what he has to say about China as well as TikTok.
If China didn't approve it, we could put tariffs on China. Don't forget, China charges us tariffs and we charge them very little, except for what I did. I put we took in hundreds of billions of dollars. But until I came along, China never paid 10 cents to this country. They ripped us off and they never paid anything. But like if we wanted to make a deal with TikTok and it was a good deal and China wouldn't approve it, then I think ultimately they'd approve it because we'd put tariffs on China. Maybe. I'm not saying I would, but you certainly could do that. And if we said, well, if you're not going to approve it, then that's a certain hostility, and we'll put tariffs of 25, 30, 40, 50%, even 100%. And if we did that, I think they'd approve it.
Shiva, it's quite interesting to see how there was a lot of, hubbub around TikTok ban in the United States of America. But now this 75-day deal for pause has been brought into the picture by the US president. Also, something very interesting is that be it the differences between Joe Biden or Donald Trump, both of them emphasized on counterbalancing China.
When it comes to TikTok, in his last term also, he clearly said, hey, TikTok, one of the US company will take over TikTok. But, the TikTok CEO, they did not agree for that. And now, yesterday also, around 24 hours, the TikTok was off in US. So whether they will the tariffs, they will increase on China and, especially on TikTok usage in the US. So, or they will ban it. So that is what. And rest of the things, whatever comes from the China, so whatever, the China manufacturer sends to America, so the tariffs are going to increase, but not immediately 50%, 100%, but at least, once in a while, they will put on 5%, 10% kind of thing. Slowly they will increase. That is what, the experts are saying in US.
And also he spoke about Canada and Mexico. Let's listen into what US President has to say about that as well.
Cartels are now going to be seen as foreign terror organizations. Would you think about ordering U.S. Special Forces into Mexico to take them out?
Could happen. Stranger things have happened.
Shiva, help us understand how exactly the 25% of tariffs that he is trying to impose on Canada and Mexico as well from February onwards is going to change the picture entirely.
When it comes to Canada is more liberal nowadays. Canada is become one of the European country like this. So there are so many people across the globe, they are coming to Canada easily and they are crossing the border. So Trump is always, he's requesting the Canadian government to stop these, migrants coming from Canada to USA. So, and, they are not able to control because of geographical difficulties, whatever. So that's the reason Trump says, hey, if you can't control, you then come and join US as a 51st state. So you will become a governor of Canada state. That is what he mentioned. But in Canada also there are so many conservatives, especially from French side. Okay, so they are not going to listen to this. So technically it is not going to happen. The Canada will not merge into US, but definitely, so other way, so to control Canada, so the tariffs 25% from the February month, 25% definitely is going to increase.
Let's also listen in from the US President Donald Trump, Shiva, what he has to say about BRICS too.
You know what a BRICS nation is? Well, you'll figure it out. But, and if the BRICS nations want to do that, that's okay, but we're going to put at least a 100% tariff on the business they do with the United States. You know what the BRICS is, right? You guys know.
Brazil,
you know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying.
So
It's not even a threat. In fact, since I made that statement, Biden said, well, they have us over a barrel. I said, no, we have them over a barrel. And there's no way they're going to be able to do that.
This is an executive order relating to
tariffs, those countries, like Spain.
As a BRICS nation, yes. They'll have 100% tariff if they so much as even think about doing what they thought.
Can you explain how
And therefore they'll give it up immediately. So will China give it up.
Shiva, this 100% tariff threat has not come from Donald Trump for the first time. He has, spoken about this in the past too. Is that going to be a threat factor for India too? Should we be worried about this too?
Yes, Sakshi. So what happens is BRICS, they are planning to stop the trading in dollars. They want to do on their own. So once these China, Russia, India, South Africa, so Brazil, so major countries and more populated. So these countries, if once they start trading in their own currency, then the dollar value will go down. So that America never wanted to do it. So that's the reason they said we will put 100% tariff on BRICS nations.
Right, Shiva. Also, let's listen into what US President has to say about that January 6, 2021 Capitol riots and the pardons that came in from his way ever since he joined the office. Let's listen.
But by pardoning his brother or brothers, by pardoning all of those people that he pardoned, by pardoning J6, the Unselect Committee, they destroyed all of the documents. They deleted all of the information. There's no information. And a lot of the information pertains to Nancy Pelosi because she was given 100, I mean, you know this, it's on tape with her daughter. Nancy Pelosi was responsible for not taking advantage of 10,000 soldiers or 1,000. You wouldn't have you could have used 400. It was a relatively small crowd. It wasn't the crowd that was at the mall, it was a small crowd. So I was a little bit surprised that he did it because it makes him look guilty. I mean, he's going to have to live with it. Now, with that being said, it's unbelievable precedent it creates for a president. But the precedent is unbelievable. Now maybe every president that leaves office, they're going to pardon every person they ever met so they don't have some lunatic like deranged Jack Smith, who's a total lunatic, by the way. Not a smart guy, he's a dummy. But we beat the hell out of him. And I helped my reputation.
Shiva, again, this could be the another controversial step that has been taken by US President Donald Trump, apart from, of course, declaring that there are only two genders, it's a male and a female. But right now, if we were to speak about the pardons that have been given, if I'm getting the figure right, it's almost 1,500 people who have been given pardons with regards to what exactly happened on January 6th of 2021.
Yes. So actually, the Washington D.C. police would have controlled this crowd that time because Trump already declared days before. He declared that my supporters will agitate in front of state capitol. So when the agitation was declared, announced, so the police would have controlled. So instead of that, they allow them to get into the Capitol Hill. So of course, there's a crowd, right? Sometimes the damage will happen. But looking at this, they deleted many of the files. They vanished a lot of documents. That's what he mentioned. That's the reason he's pardoning. Right?
Absolutely. Shiva, let's listen in from Donald Trump what he has to say about Panama Canal, although we have already discussed that briefly, but let's listen in what exactly he said.
Late.
All right, Shiva continues to stay on with us. Shiva, if we were to speak of what exactly is in the bag for India, because with Donald Trump coming back to the office, we are looking at more of the bilateral trades being given a massive push. How hopeful should we be at this point of time with Donald Trump now back as US President?
Yeah, so when, as far as the America-India relations concern, India is going to benefit because of Modi and Trump's friendship. And India is a very strong country in the world, you can say, and also is the very strongest country in Asia. So our common enemy is China for US and India. So definitely US needs a strong support in Asia. So that is going to be India. And India is the population-wise number one, and English speaking is number one, technology, everything is number one, pharma hub, everything. You can say whatever. Not only that. So US also wants to control the space now. So that also they will consider now ISRO, like Indian Space Research Organization. So definitely the space also they will take over with the support of India.
Absolutely. Shiva, thank you so much for joining us and putting all of that information into perspective for our viewers here on News 9. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a quick commercial break. Do stay on. We'll come right back with more news and developments right on the other side.
We won! We won!
This is the best day day ever. Excited to see Trump back.
And hopefully get a chance to see him participate in victory celebration.
I'm thrilled to be back. We are going to make America great again.
You work too hard. Work smart like me.
Why? Won a lottery, is it?
You can say so. I'm investing in a great scheme in the share market. High returns guaranteed.
Your high returns aren't Karan Arjun for them to definitely come to you.
Meaning?
Dad, there's risk involved in the share market. Nobody can promise guaranteed high returns. It's illegal to do so.
Really?
Yeah.
So much good. Invest कर.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर SBI लाइफ, अपने लिए अपनों के लिए।
तेरा बच्चा मेरा नाम जरूर रोशन करेगा।
बच्चों से नाम रोशन करवाने का परफेक्ट प्लान, कैनरा HSBC लाइफ इंश्योरेंस चाइल्ड प्लान। कैनरा HSBC लाइफ इंश्योरेंस, प्रॉमिसेस का पार्टनर।
We made history for a reason tonight.
Will it change the shape of American foreign policy? Violence has erupted in Manipur once again. How can we pass judgment, sir, before any inquiry that, they were volunteers or militants, sir?
In the chaos of battle, one weapon stands as a silent reaper of the battlefield. It can kill at ranges of over 3 kilometers. Just one precise shot can shatter enemy lines, disrupt entire formations, and tip the scales of war. This is a weapon born in Bharat, and it's crafted to take on the best in the world. This is the SSS Defense Sabre, and you're watching Guns of India.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
India spends $75 billion on foreign cargo vessels.
$71 billion per annum. That's a lot of money.
Imagine a situation where 95% of our cargo is coming on ships which are not owned by us. If we are still not prepared, if someone were to say that we are not going to give you ships, then we'll be stuck. So the entire nation's economy is at risk.
We are very clear that shipping is also strategic, because without that you can't really be the third largest economy in the world.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
We won!
This is the best day ever. Excited to see Trump back.
And hopefully get a chance to see him participate in victory celebration.
I'm thrilled to be back. We are going to make America great again.
Welcome back, viewers. We are continuing to bring you the latest developments as far as America's new chapter is concerned. It's Donald 2.0, and let's see what else he has said and what's there on the cards. Now, the foreign ministers of Quad countries will meet here on January 21st, a day after the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th US president, making it one of the first foreign policy acts of the new administration. The Quad ministerial meeting is intended to signal that in their own terms, the US's commitment to the Indo-Pacific will not change under the new administration. This is now expected to be the first major interaction and meeting of the new administration with the foreign leaders. In fact, in an exclusive conversation with News9, Dhruva Jaishankar, Executive Director ORF America, discusses how Donald Trump's second term in the Oval Office would impact the Indo-US bilateral ties, from cooperation in defense to trade and, in fact, technology. Dhruva Jaishankar analyzes the various aspects of India-US bilateral relations. Take a look at what he has to say.
Joining us live from Washington, D.C. is the Executive Director of the Observer Research Foundation America, Dhruva Jaishankar. Thank you very much, Dhruva, for joining us at a very short notice. But you are witnessing these historic visuals coming in from the Capitol Hill. Your first thoughts, really, and of course, if you would comment on the future of the India-US relations. We have had a continuity. We have had, of course, a bipartisan support as well. But Modi and Trump have had a bonhomie as well, particularly on trade and immigration. How do you think the immediate future negotiation would be like?
Well, I think, first of all, we're seeing the, live pictures of the inauguration ceremony happening in the Capitol. Right now, the Vice President-elect J.D. Vance has just been introduced. Trump will follow shortly, and you see a kind of stellar cast of characters there in the background watching in attendance, including from the tech sector, a lot of US CEOs. But increasingly, quite unusually, for the first time really, we have foreign visitors as well, officials from different countries. Largely, a lot of attention on Chinese participation. The Vice President of China, who is ranked 7th in the Politburo Standing Committee, is in attendance. A lot of other elected and opposition politicians from other countries who are ideologically aligned with Trump. So Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is there. From Italy, Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, but also, of course, the Quad foreign ministers are there as a signal of the strategic importance of these relationships, including India. So I think that is an early indication that the Trump administration is keen on developing a positive relationship with India and will take forward these strategic relations. Now, you alluded to some differences, and I think those differences will come to the fore in the immediate weeks and months, perhaps even days. So we'll have differences over trade and tariffs. Trump believes that India enjoys a large trade deficit, trade surplus with the US. The US has a trade deficit with India, and that he wants to fix that, and he will use tariffs amongst other tools as a negotiating tactic to, in his view, get more equitable terms. A second issue, as you mentioned, is on immigration, both undocumented migrants from India and other countries, and also legal, reforming. This will take longer and be a bit more difficult, but reforming some of the legal architecture around legal migration from India and many other countries to the US. So these issues will have direct implications for India. I anticipate some very tough negotiations in the weeks and months ahead. But on balance, I think the view is one of cooperation. And as you're seeing footage, President-elect Donald Trump has now been introduced, and he will be taking his oath shortly.
All right, we are getting visuals of Donald Trump actually entering the Capitol Hill, and a few minutes from now, the official ceremony would be beginning. But Dhruva, if I can quickly come to you, two other points that India would be closely looking at is, of course, the continuity in Quad. We had this, photograph coming in immediately from the Capitol Hill with the Indian Foreign Minister with his counterparts from Australia, Penny Wong, and Japan as well. How do you see this continuity in Quad? What new things could we expect in a year where New Delhi is going to host the Quad Summit? And of course, quickly on Elon Musk as well. When do we see him in New Delhi?
I don't have immediate answers, particularly to the second one. What I think is interesting is that the nominee for Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has made the Quad his first order of business. So he's expected to have a meeting tomorrow, Tuesday, with the first, really his first official engagement, and he's expected to be confirmed as Secretary of State later today. Will be with the Quad. And so I think it shows really a high priority that they're placing on the Quad. Now, what issues the Quad will focus on under Trump? remains to be seen. I expect there'll be some continuity with what Biden has done, but many areas of disruptions, perhaps a more explicit maritime focus, perhaps some issues like clean energy will go lower down the agenda if they're on the agenda at all. So I think the first meeting will really be to see what areas of commonality and interest will emerge within the Quad. On Elon Musk, he actually hosted a delegation of Indian businesses, Indian CEOs just a few days ago. Yeah. And so I think that indicates to him a high degree of interest in engaging with India and looking for business opportunities in India. So I expect he will come, but he has such diversified business interests, whether it's Tesla, SpaceX, X, Twitter. Which areas he sees the most interest? Obviously, from India's point of view, part of Make in India is to focus on manufacturing. So I think that's where India will want to see a lot. But I expect the next 1 to 2 years will be a very promising time for US-India space cooperation in general, and so SpaceX will be at the forefront of that.
With that, it's time for a quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, do stay on with us. We'll come right back with more developments right on the other side.
We won!
This is the best day ever. I'm excited to see Trump back.
And hopefully we get a chance to see him participating in victory celebration.
I'm thrilled to be back. We are going to make America great again.
Mama must be missing us, nah?
Let's take it one day, give me one day. Feel the itch under my skin, it's a one day. You believe it when you see we in the hey. It doesn't matter, just gotta get going.
New GT line, Taigun and Virtus. Volkswagen.
I will take you to Paris. Paris नहीं, Paris. तुम्हारा pronunciation भी ना, तुम्हारे इरादे की तक.
मैडम इरादे कभी ऑफ नहीं होते, टेक ऑफ करते हैं.
SBI लाइफ स्मार्ट प्लैटिना सुप्रीम के गारंटीड रिटर्न से करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे. SBI लाइफ, अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए.
From the highlands of Afghanistan to the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts of Africa, to street battles in Mosul, the AK-47 has dominated every conflict. But what if it could be made even better? Enter the SSS Defense P-72, India's answer to the AK-47. So how good is it? Let's find out.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
We won!
This is the best day ever. I'm excited to see Trump back.
And hopefully we get a chance to see him participating in victory celebration.
I'm thrilled to be back. We are going to make America great again.
Welcome back, viewers. Now let's one by one talk about the series of executive orders that have been brought into the picture by Donald Trump. First up, let's talk about that voluntary Paris Agreement. Now, President Donald Trump once again withdrew the United States from the Paris climate deal on Monday, removing the world's biggest historic emitter from the global efforts to fight climate change for the second time in a decade. The move places the United States alongside Iran, Libya and Yemen as the only countries in the world outside the 2015 pact in which governments agreed to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels of avoiding the worst climate impacts of climate change. It also reflects Trump's skepticism about global warming, which he called a hoax in the past. and in fact fits in with his broader agenda to unfetter US oil and gas drillers from regulation so they can maximize the output. Trump also signed an executive order withdrawing from the pact in front of supporters gathered at the Capital One Arena in Washington. The United States has to formally notify UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres of its withdrawal, which under the terms of the deal will take effect 1 year later. The United States is already the world's top producer of oil and natural gas, thanks to a years-long drilling boom in Texas, New Mexico and elsewhere, fueled by fracking technology and strong global prices since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, as Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th US president for a historic second term on Monday, world leaders extended their wishes as Trump took the oath of office. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated his quote-unquote dear friend Trump on his inauguration and wished him a quote-unquote successful term ahead. Taking to Platform X, Prime Minister Modi wrote, and I'm going to quote those lines from his tweet here: "Congratulations, my dear friend President Donald Trump, on your historic inauguration as the 47th President of the United States. I look forward to working closely together once again to benefit both our countries and to shape a better future of the world. Best wishes for a successful term ahead." Well, Prime Minister Modi did not attend the inauguration ceremony, which was attended by several world leaders. Instead, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar represented India as the Prime Minister's special envoy. Now, Prime Minister Modi was not the only one. He was not the only world leader who has extended his congratulations to the newly inaugurated US President. Ladies and gentlemen, Russian President Vladimir Putin also sent his wishes. The Russian President said he is open to dialogue with the new US administration on Ukraine and nuclear arms. Putin reiterated that Moscow is open to dialogue with the new US administration on the Ukrainian conflict. He also emphasized that the objective should not be a short-term ceasefire, but a lasting peace, respecting the legitimate interests of all people residing in the region.
Избранного президента США и членов его команды о желании восстановить прямые контакты с Россией, прерванные не по нашей вине уходящей администрации. Слышим также его заявление о необходимости сделать все, чтобы не допустить Третьей мировой войны. Безусловно, мы приветствуем такой настрой.
And congratulations continued to pour in for Donald Trump after his inauguration as the 47th US President. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was among the next leaders to extend his wishes. Netanyahu expressed confidence that the Israel-US alliance would reach unprecedented levels during Trump's term. He also emphasized his commitment to working together with the US to ensure the return of Israeli hostages.
Congratulations, President Trump. Sarah and I send our warmest wishes to you, Melania, and the American people on your second inauguration as President of the United States. Your first term as President was filled with groundbreaking moments in the history of the great alliance between our two countries. You withdrew from the dangerous Iran nuclear deal. You recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. You moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, and you recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. You also brokered the historic Abraham Accords, in which Israel made peace with 4 Arab countries. I believe that working together again, we will raise the U.S.-Israel alliance to even greater heights. I'm confident that we will complete the defeat of Iran's terror axis and usher in a new era of peace and prosperity for our region. On behalf of the people of Israel, I also want to thank you for your efforts in helping free Israeli hostages. I look forward to working with you to return the remaining hostages, to destroy Hamas's military capabilities and end its political rule in Gaza, and to ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. I'm sure, Mr. President, that under your leadership, the best days of our alliance are yet to come.
So those were the congratulatory messages being poured in by Prime Minister Modi and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Apart from that, we also heard what Vladimir Putin has to say about Donald Trump coming back to the office. All the world leaders congratulating. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister Modi could not attend the ceremony, but instead of him, we saw Dr. S. Jaishankar being present at the ceremony representing India and of course as Prime Minister Modi's special envoy. That's not it. Something very interesting happened at the oath ceremony, ladies and gentlemen. US President Donald Trump took his oath of office with his right hand raised but without his left hand on the Bibles that his wife Melania held as she stood by his side. Take a look.
When U.S. President Donald Trump took his oath of office, he had his right hand raised, but his left wasn't on the Bible. But does it matter? Academics tell Reuters that it was an oversight and it doesn't have much practical impact, although the moment has gone viral online. One professor at the University of Texas told us that a president doesn't have to connect to God in this way. The oath is to the Constitution. 2 Bibles were held by Trump's wife Melania as she stood next to him at the ceremony.
And President Donald Trump enjoyed an indoor inaugural parade Monday, which was yesterday, as he reclaimed the presidency, promising a crackdown on illegal immigration and portraying himself as a savior chosen by God to rescue a faltering nation. The inauguration completes a triumphant return for a political disruptor who was twice impeached, survived 2 assassination attempts, was convicted in a criminal trial and also faced charges for attempting to overturn his 2020 election loss, ladies and gentlemen. He's the first president in more than a century to win a second term after losing the White House and the first felon to occupy the White House.
Several critical agenda items that he is putting on the table for the Legislative Council to review all of those. If I can read some of those, it's like he has given a true statement of strength and prosperity for the United States of America. It's like restoring integrity, rebuilding the nation with love, a new era of liberation, then bring the national sovereignty back, do an economic revival, supporting American workers and the auto manufacturing workers, create merit-based policies in the country, which is very important. This topic particularly brings about bringing more of US and India relations and bring the best talent from India over to US. And then also he talked about defending against adversities. US has been facing a lot of challenges for the last few years. So he wants to bring a team of global policy decision makers to improve how US makes critical decisions in foreign investments. At the same time, he says reclaim strategic assets. There's a lot of oil exploration happening in the country, so they want to solve all of that and bring back the mighty power that the United States wants to bring back to the people. He also talked about advancing national health and space exploration, which is also very critical for the country. He said he will be here to fight for the people so that the lives of several Americans in the country will be improved. So he also said bring respect back to the nation. He's saying the US is powerful. He wants to bring business back and manufacturing back to the United States.
So we saw a series of executive orders coming into the picture, some of them being very controversial, ladies and gentlemen. But let's talk about Donald Trump. He enjoyed an indoor inaugural parade as he reclaimed the presidency, promising a crackdown on illegal immigration and portraying himself as a savior chosen by God to rescue a faltering nation. In fact, my colleague Kabir Naqvi spoke to Lisa Curtis. Let's take a look at that exclusive conversation that he had with her here on News9.
Ma'am, first and foremost, I must ask you this because, you're somebody who's worked with Donald Trump, and I need to begin on this personal note. How would you describe Donald Trump's view of India, of Prime Minister Modi, of, looking at India as a strategic partner, especially given his focus on China being that assertive dragon in the Indo-Pacific as well? And what can India expect in the next 4 years?
Well, look, I think if you look at Trump 1, you see that the U.S.-India relationship was really elevated during this period, that President Trump got along very well with Prime Minister Modi. I think they had respect for one another. They enjoyed meeting together and working together. You saw this come out at the Howdy Modi event, the Namaste Trump event in India. So there's a lot of goodwill that President Trump feels for the India relationship, as well as his relationship with Prime Minister Modi in particular. So I fully expect that the U.S.-India relationship will reach new heights under President Trump. He's even said that he wants to go to India early in his term. And so he might be the first U.S. president to visit India in the first year of his second term. This would be quite unprecedented to see a U.S. president putting so much focus and attention on India. So I think this bodes well for the future of the relationship. I think another thing that we can point to is the fact that there will be a Quad meeting of the foreign ministers this week. Again, that shows that India will be a priority for the Trump administration. Of course, there's many conflicts that he's going to have to focus on immediately, the Israel-Gaza situation, Russia-Ukraine. But when it comes to the Indo-Pacific, when it comes to this vital region, I think India will be a focal point of that strategy, of that policy. And so the fact that we're seeing a Quad meeting this week is a great indication of that. The only thing that I would put out there is that I think we are seeing that Trump may take a different approach to China than people initially expected. I think it's going to be more of a mixed approach. Of course, leaders like Michael Waltz, the incoming National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio, the incoming Secretary of State, are China hawks, and they will be focused on the U.S. competition with China and all that entails, whether it is export controls, whether it's restrictions on U.S. investment in China, whether it is building up alternative supply chains. These two leaders will pursue all of these policies. However, you're going to have people like Elon Musk, who has, Tesla investments in China. You'll have the economic team, the National Economic Council, Scott Bessent at Treasury. These people will be focused on the economic relationship. And we know Trump is a deal maker. He's going to want to make a deal with China. So how this plays out in terms of the overall U.S.-China policy is something we've yet to see. But I think there probably is some surprise in India that President Trump has invited President Xi to his inauguration. Of course, it will be the vice president who actually attends. But there has been some reaching out by President Trump to China, and how that will impact the India-U.S. relationship, I think we've yet to see.
Well, very interesting points that you've raised over here, ma'am. Of course, you spoke about that, list of people, Michael Waltz, Marco Rubio, Kash Patel, the FBI director, not just China hawks, but also, pro-India voices. But before that, I need to ask you about the Quad. You mentioned the Quad meeting, not necessarily looked at as a military alliance, but with Donald Trump at the helm of affairs, could things change in the Indo-Pacific, which is, again, your area of expertise as well?
Well, I think the Quad will remain an important forum for engagement. But as you said, it's not a military pact. It's more about these four countries, these four democracies, maritime powers coming together, pooling their resources, their capabilities to shape the Indo-Pacific environment in a way that it's a free and open region. You have free trade. You have countries whose sovereignty is respected. So you have free seaways. This is another aspect of the Quad. They've come to maritime security agreements, and there's been a commitment that the four countries' coast guards will start an observer mission somewhere in the Indo-Pacific. So these are all issues that are very important to a Trump administration. We saw in Secretary of State designate Rubio's testimony that he's going to be focused on countering Chinese aggression, whether that is against the Philippines in the South China Sea, whether that's against Taiwan. So on all of these issues, the Quad has become an important mechanism to pushing back against Chinese bullying, against Chinese aggression. So I fully expect that to continue. Whether or not there's more of a military defense focus, I think, that's an interesting question. It does seem that there could be moving forward. They're already dealing with maritime security. It's not that big of a leap for the defense issues to start to come into play. So I think that is something that, could happen and we have to keep an eye on. But I think the main thing that the Quad meeting, the holding of a Quad meeting the first week of the Trump administration taking power gives me a very clear signal that the Trump administration does value its partnerships with countries like India, its alliance relationships with countries like Japan and Australia, and that they will continue to build on this important initiative that, by the way, was started in the first Trump administration. It was Trump who revived Quad after a 10-year hiatus. So it's not surprising that this, again, the Quad will be an important element of the Trump Indo-Pacific strategy.
Of course. So there's always that possibility as well. And, ma'am, coming back to the second aspect of my previous question, I'm going to add a couple of names to that list. You mentioned Michael Waltz and Marco Rubio, of course, Kash Patel, FBI director. We've got, the senior director for India in the National Security Council, Ricky Gill. And these are all, of course, Tulsi Gabbard, the head of intelligence as well, another name to that list. How crucial will these set of people and their influence be in shaping the India-US relationships and ties in the next 4 years under Trump 2.0?
Well, absolutely. I think everybody you named will have a role in the India-US relationship and sort of the view that the Trump administration takes of India. As I mentioned, Trump already had, I think, pretty fully formed views on India and saw India as an important partner in the first Trump term. While there was some friction over the trade issue, of course, President Trump during his first term had pulled the GSP privileges for India. But beyond that, I think we saw a lot of strategic convergence between India and the U.S. in the first Trump term. You saw that President Trump in his first term supported India when it had its border crisis with China, pulled out all stops to support India in that time of crisis. Also, there was a lot of cooperation between India and the U.S. during the COVID crisis that Trump initiated. So, he already has fully formed views of India, but it certainly will help that you have a lot of these incoming cabinet level advisors and cabinet officials who know India, have visited India, and have strong views in support of a strong U.S.-India relationship.
We won! We won!
This is the best day ever. Excited to see Trump back.
And hopefully get a chance to see him participating in victory celebration.
I'm thrilled to be back. We are going to make America great again.
India spends $75 billion on foreign cargo vessels.
$75 billion per annum. That's a lot of money.
Imagine a situation where 95% of our cargo is coming on ships which are not owned by us. If we are still not prepared, if someone were to say that we are not going to give you ships, then we'll be stuck. So the entire nation's economy is at risk.
We are very clear that shipping is also strategic, because without that you can't really be the third largest economy in the world.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
A very good morning. You're watching News9 Live. I'm Karthik Malhotra. Donald Trump is back as the President of the United States for his second term, Trump 2.0. What does this mean for India's relationship on trade and otherwise with the great United States? We'll discuss that on the show today with Mohandas Pai and Dr. Srinath Sridharan. And also on the show, just few days to go for Union Budget 2025. How will your personal finances change? We'll discuss that with Mohit Gang. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, a look at the headlines. Donald Trump takes oath of office as the 47th President of the United States. Reported to have signed 200 executive orders on day one. Presidential pardon granted to 1,500 participants of the 2021 Jan 6th attack on the US Capitol. Golden Age of America begins now. Trump opens his inaugural address with this golden line, even as he criticizes the Joe Biden administration with the former president sitting just a few feet away. True to his electoral promise, drill baby drill, Trump vows to defeat inflation by declaring national energy emergency, says fossil fuels will be back, scraps the Green New Deal, revokes 50% EV target by 2030. Gulf of Mexico to be renamed Gulf of America, says Donald Trump. Name changes to begin in the region will restore the name of President William McKinley to Mount McKinley. In a crackdown on illegal migrants from Mexico and gangs and cartels operating in the US, Trump invokes Alien Enemies Act 1798, resumes the Remain in Mexico campaign, says millions and millions to be deported, even as troops to guard thousands of kilometers of the Mexican border with Southern America. And Trump vows to take back the Panama Canal, says Panama did not abide by the treaty, charged US ships high tariffs and allowed Chinese control of the canal. And is it an end of diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI in the USA? President Trump says the US recognizes just two genders, but asks his administration to be colorblind in promoting merit. Meanwhile, in domestic news, National Companies Law Tribunal NCLT orders liquidation of Go First airline 20 months after the last flight by the Wadia Group airline took to the skies. Vijay Shekhar Sharma led Paytm to expand to Saudi Arabia, UAE and Singapore. The management says after Q3 results show a narrowing of losses. But first up on Morning Brief at 9, with just a few days to go for Budget 2025, will Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman bite the bullet for the middle class? That's the question we are asking over the next few days and on Budget Day, 1st of February, which is just around the corner. There are a few pointed questions that we would like to ask and discuss on the show today. Number one, income tax. Are there going to be likely changes in the income tax slabs? Is there a possibility that there's going to be just one tax regime, no new tax regime or old tax regime, but just one income tax regime? That's the first question we want to address today. Going forward, how are the mutual funds likely to be impacted? Will there be changes in long-term or short-term capital gains? What about real estate investments? Will indexation benefits stay? That is another question that we would be asking today. And security transaction tax, will they have an impact on the markets? What about cryptocurrencies? Will budget stay silent on this new asset class again? And going forward, we will discuss what is in it for senior citizen savings schemes. Well, joining me to discuss this and more today with me is Mohit Gang, co-founder and CEO of Moneyfront. Mohit, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on News9 Live this morning. Let's begin first with expectations on the income tax front. There are clarion calls coming from all quarters, the middle class as well as corporate India, that we need to boost our consumption story. And for the consumption story, we need more income, disposable income in the hands of consumers. Is Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman really intending to give those additional disposable income in the hand of citizens?
Hi Karthik, good morning. It's always a pleasure to be speaking with you. Look, I think we are just 10 days away from the D-Day in terms of honestly, I think only the day will tell what is lying behind the red book. But my sense is it's high time that these calls are heard by the finance ministry and by the government. I think the middle class in India, by all accounts, is shrinking. The rich are getting the richer, and the poor are getting poorer. The income disparity is increasing. There has to be more disposable savings allowed in the hands of middle class to be able to spend more, to be able to consume more. And I think the figures all across are showing that the consumption in India is suffering, and we need to do something to revive that overall animal spirit in the economy. So I'd not be surprised, honestly, if the government were to increase the threshold limits of taxes under the new tax regime. Honestly, Karthik, I don't think so that there'll be any tinkering around in the old tax regime, but the new tax regime will be made and should ideally be made more attractive, so that more and more salaried individuals or corporates even try and move towards the new tax regime. I think there's a gradual nudge by the government also. And under the DTC, government would want to have a very uniform and a simplified tax structure. So directionally also, I think new tax regime makes more sense. So I don't see any magic pills coming through in the old regime, but in the new regime, I definitely foresee and I expect that the basic threshold limits should be increased, and some benefit should also be additionally provided to the senior citizen class.
Okay, let's just discuss the income tax slabs for just a bit, Mohit. Is there a possibility that with a threshold increase in the new tax regime, the number of net zero or nil tax filers is actually going to increase, and hence is there going to be a problem for the government to collect those taxes? And while the consumption story at one level may pick up, government's own capex could take a beating with the slowdown in tax collection.
Look, honestly, I think the number of people any which ways paying taxes in India is extremely low, right? I think it's sub 3% if I'm not wrong. And number of people filing nil taxes, at least you will get a larger base under the tax net by increasing the basic threshold limits, increasing from 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs, the base limit. I don't think so that should harm government too much in terms of the finances which it is collecting through direct taxes. In any which ways, I think the pie of indirect taxes is getting larger and should ideally become larger and larger as we move by. People getting under more tax net, I think that's more to do with the uncovering of hidden incomes, trying to get more people under the tax net, improving the GST net, improving the overall ease of business and everything around it, right? So my sense is that will happen gradually. I don't think so the slabs have got anything to do with it per se. You might just find a little bit more of zero tax filers, but that's okay to take as long as it creates more consumption and as long as it creates ease of living for so many people around.
And you're saying that no tinkering in the old tax regime, so old tax regime will stay. We will not have one unified tax regime, but the old tax regime will stay. Okay, no problem, Mohit. Let's move on to another very important aspect of personal finance, and this comes by way of the record number of SIP folios that we are seeing and mutual fund folios that we are seeing. Is there going to be any change in the mutual fund slabs when it comes to long-term capital gains or short-term capital gains, especially when there is this debate about bringing debt and equity mutual funds at par? How do you think that is going to pan out in budget 2025?
Oh, Karthik, I honestly wish and pray that they just forget about the mutual fund and leave it aside.
Okay.
I think they've done enough and more changes on the LTCG and STCG last year.
You're saying changes? Do you mean they've done enough and more damage, or changes is the right word you want to use?
Whatever, the way you want to take it. But I think, look, debt is now fully taxable. So that any which ways is a no case. Equities, they've increased the STCG, LTCG last year. So I don't think so they're going to dabble with it every year.
Okay.
Enough and more amount of disturbances were caused last year. But yes, they have gotten a lot of uniformity both towards listed and unlisted asset classes last year. Even on the property, on gold, everything. There was a lot of clarity being bring about, and now you see, if you see, there is so much uniformity across all asset classes. I don't think so the government needs to dabble more. Any which ways, look, finally, long-term capital gains, one has to also understand there has to be enough long-term capital gains for people to be able to pay those taxes.
Absolutely.
You can keep increasing rate, but if markets are not supporting you, then there are hardly any gains to be paid out taxes on, right?
Absolutely. So what does the government gain at the end of the day? Very true. Yeah. So let's move on to the next investment class. Let's talk about real estate. You just touched upon it, Mohit. But last year again, we saw a lot of rancor around real estate investments, and one rate to apply with indexation benefit, one rate to apply without indexation benefit, and then the removal of indexation benefit was brought back. Is that going to be status quo? Is that going to stay as is, or do you think there's going to be some tinkering with indexation again this time around?
Oh, totally. I don't think so. Government could foresee what happened last year, and there was so much of hue and cry about the indexation benefit being taken away. And I think government did the right thing by clarifying that, okay, all the there was a grandfathering which was given, which is whatever you brought previously, you could decide whether you want to take indexation benefit or you want to pay the newer tax slab, the lower tax slab of 12.5% without indexation, right? And I don't think so. Government is now going to enter into that real estate space any longer. So I again imagine and foresee a status quo out there.
Okay, so status quo on old tax regime, status quo on long-term, short-term capital gains, on mutual funds, status quo on indexation. Will there be some change in REITs again, some tax incentive to prop this entire real estate market by way of real estate investment trusts?
Totally needed, Karthik. Okay. I think REITs is something which has to gain more prominence, and commercial real estate is something which has to give more, which has to be given more fillip. Overall, real estate as a sector, I think, is at the crux and center of any economy. So my sense is the bigger questions still remain in REITs, that dividend should not be double taxed. Basically, if that could be solved for, it will create a lot of clarity. SEBI has already taken a lot of initiatives to democratize the ticket size for REITs. I think more and more REITs have to get listed. Some norms have to be simplified, which I don't think so are so much in the purview of Finance Ministry, but more so in the purview of SEBI as a regulator.
Right.
But yes, I think dividend taxation and a few other points could be made simpler on the REITs front.
Okay, simpler dividend taxation on the REITs front. Another, when we're talking about markets and market-based investment, security transaction tax is also something, Mohit, that has been in debate for a very long time. And with the kind of crackdown that we are seeing from SEBI as well as the Finance Ministry on the entire FNO action when it comes to retail investors who lose money, do you think there is some case this time to tinker with the security transaction tax?
Karthik, I honestly wish it were reduced. It is just at the inflection point where it will break the back of quite a number of traders. Honestly, it's a fairly high STT which we in this country are paying on every trade. So my sense is, look, if you really want to drive volumes, and that should be the endeavor in anything and everything which a government does, it has to drive volumes. It has to try and spread the net far and wide so that more and more people are part of the tax net. You can't make it so steep that very few are able to pay it and very few can afford it, and then most of the people try to wriggle out of it, right? So my sense is STTs are already at a fairly high level, both in cash and futures market. Some easing would definitely help, but I honestly doubt the government will go the opposite way. I think again a status quo out here is what I'm expecting.
Okay, but with restrictions in the FNO trade for retail investors, in any case, I think the government's overall kitty of tax collection by way of security transaction tax would go down. So, I mean, is there possibly a case that the government may actually increase STT this time around to compensate for the reduced FNO action?
I doubt, honestly, Karthik, that the STTs will be increased. I will be fairly surprised if that is the case. Honestly, my sense is with the increased the transaction sizes, perhaps the value size increases a little, and it kind of compensates for the retail collection through the STT kind of thing. So I am not really sure as to how much impact it will have on the overall collection of government. Perhaps it could be a market impact, more to say, but my sense is I still continue to believe that it'll have a status quo kind of an impact.
Okay, so let's move on to another asset class, and this one is pretty much the favorite of all households, which is gold. So when somebody wants to invest in gold and look at gold as purely an investment class, do you think the reduced custom duty will stay, or will they be tinkering with that?
Gold is a tricky case, Karthik. Look, honestly, I think it directly impacts. Gold and oil are two things which directly impacts your trade deficit and fiscal deficit per se. Government has been running a fairly high trade deficit for last 2-3 odd months. And look, gold custom duties, governments time in and time again have tried playing around with it. It went to as high as 16%, was reduced dramatically last year. It has again increased gold imports. Now you can argue that it reduces the black market overall, the second market which goes on, parallel market which goes on, but a reduced customs duty is having a serious impact on our trade deficits. So I'm really not sure what the government finances look like out here, and would the FM want to again dabble with it. But I don't further foresee a reduction in trade duties or customs duties.
Okay.
It might just increase given the trade deficit.
Oh, might just increase given the trade deficit. Okay.
Possible.
Sure. Mohit, another important investment class emerging in the world, especially in the US, comes by way of cryptocurrencies. We've seen the budget has stayed silent, conspicuously silent on recognizing this investment class, and one pays taxes on gains on crypto, but the losses are not offset. Now with the Bitcoin at a record high of $109,000 a piece as of yesterday, I haven't checked the rates this morning. Do you think there is some chance that there's going to be some clarification on cryptocurrencies, or do you think the government is not going to budge on its stand? And it is pretty much a grey area stand. It's not illegal, but it is not regulated. So will anything happen in cryptocurrencies?
I think honestly, Karthik, when you don't understand something, or when you really don't want to get into a messy situation, it's best for everyone to just stay silent on particular topics. And I think that is what the government is trying to do out here. They're just keeping silent on this very important topic. My sense is world around, we will see a lot of people following the US what do you say, the way US solves for this, or the US formula per se. I think people are waiting as to what Trump will do in terms of crypto and how the US market will emerge, and perhaps then we will see some economies and some countries trying to follow suit. I don't think so in India government will be in a hurry or in a rush to kind of do anything around it. I think they'll just leave the topic as it is on the side. The any which was taxing it to the core, so there's no further scope of taxing it higher from the current levels. So my sense is government might just stay away from this topic.
All right. And there is also some discussion on fixed deposits and the taxation on fixed deposits. Mohit, theoretically, does it seem viable for the government to encourage more bank deposits and add more liquidity in banks? Do you think there is a case where the government should look at the proceeds from fixed deposits to be taxed like mutual funds, short-term, long-term, and not really get added back to the income?
Look, I think it was a long-lasting demand of bankers that deposits be brought, or the debt funds or fixed income taxation be brought at par with the deposit taxation. Now that's been done for last two budgets. So debt is completely taxed, as in fixed income mutual funds are completely taxed in the hands of investors at marginal rate, and so is fixed deposits. So it's at par now, and it is about on the merit of the asset class as to what finds more favor. And my sense is over last 2 years we have seen a lot of pull down from retail investors from fixed income investments. If you see the additional money going into fixed income investments is not so high, right? So my sense is the banking liquidity ease off. It's more in the purview of central bank now. I don't think so government is going to do anything favoring the fixed deposit taxation out here. I don't foresee that scenario.
All right, you don't foresee that scenario. And finally, the ninth point. We're News9, so we like to do things in the number of 9. So finally, my ninth question to you, Mohit, is senior citizen savings scheme. Last year, we saw that the government had doubled the investment for senior citizens, and this particular scheme is something that a lot of senior citizens put their life savings into. Is there room to add more cushion for senior citizens by way of the senior citizen savings scheme?
Karthik, a very important trivia. The sum total of this year is also 9, so this might perhaps be the year of News9, right? And
with you around and on our show, Mohit, I'm pretty sure this will be the year of News9. But do go ahead.
I wish you all the very best. Look, senior citizen savings scheme. I honestly wish and pray government does a lot more to make this attractive. Senior citizens need more concessions around the budget, and the best way to pass it is to make this tax free. Honestly, the interest income is, I think, around 8 or something right now. If they were to make that tax free, it will ease off a life of so many senior citizens around the country, and be a very, very big boost to their life and their expenses and everything. So my humble request to the powers that may be is that senior citizen savings scheme be made, the interest earned from that be made completely tax free, and I think they'll go a long way.
All right. Well, Mohit, thank you for all your inputs on budget expectations and really logically drilling it down to what could practically be taken up by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and what could potentially be ignored. So thank you so much for your inputs. But before I let you go, the markets have just opened a few minutes back. Let's just look at the charts and see how the Nifty 50 is trading. I'm told the Nifty 50 is trading above the 23,400 levels this morning. This is the highest it had touched since the 10th of Jan. It has come slightly below that now to 23,396 or so. The mood of the market today seems a little mixed. While the large caps are doing well and the top 50 and top 30 companies happen to be in the green this morning, there is some negativity on the mid cap and small cap space. So Mohit, before I let you go, what is driving the mood of the market today? Is it Donald Trump, and hence are we seeing an upsurge in the IT stocks this morning, or is there more to understand the mood of the market?
Oh, totally. I think world across, it's the Trump trade which is getting played out, which went to an extreme, other extreme, and I think the world is now easing off a little. You see the dollar index went to as high as around 110, eased off to 109 and then to 108, and then again inched up a little. But I think the world is now easing off, thinking that all that was said prior to coming to office could have been more scare and less reality. In reality, it will be a very gradual and calculated measure. Once you assume office in those powerful positions, it is not very easy to do whatever you were thinking you would be able to, right, in a flash. So it might just take time for Trump to shape up his policies, and that's what the world is now realizing. And my sense is, I think these are good recovery trades which are happening all across, and that should play out very well.
All right, and a little bit of a silence, if not silence, then at least Trump did not go full hog on the tariff plan in his inaugural speech yesterday. Is it fair to assume at this moment that it is definitely not the top priority of the Trump administration to slap tariffs, and is it something that could play out in coming weeks?
Look, I think he did mention vaguely that it will come around on 1st of Feb. So it's not something which is off the radar totally. But yes, it was not his top priority, and perhaps he wouldn't have gone detailing out on each tariff and everything. But he has gone all out on his big agenda items like immigration and other things. So my sense is it's not completely off the charts. It will come gradually, but it won't come in a manner which I think the world is envisaging. It will be a very gradual and a very calculated thing, and perhaps more trade-like, right? Trump is a businessman by heart, so he would want to trade things with countries and try to pull off a bargain, right? So wherever he can't pull off a bargain, perhaps the tariffs go up, and wherever he can pull off a different bargain, perhaps it might be a little ease than what we are kind of thinking and making out to be.
All right, Mohit, we will leave it at that. Thank you so much for taking our time this morning and joining us right here on Morning Brief at 9.
My pleasure.
Well, moving on to other domestic news which is coming in this morning, and the first one comes by way of Go First Airlines. The National Company Law Tribunal, or NCLT, has now ordered the liquidation of Go First Airlines. The order came from NCLT in response to a request from the cash-strapped airlines lenders. It must be remembered that in August last year, lenders of Go First Airways had come to the decision of liquidating company's assets after rejecting bids by investors by interested suitors to revive the bankrupt airline. Go First had filed for bankruptcy in May last year, in May 2023, by the way. Subsequently, it had received 2 financial bids under bankruptcy process. One of the interested parties had also raised their offer after a push by Go First lenders. The budget carrier owes a total of 65.21 billion rupees to its creditors. These include the Central Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, IDBI Bank and Deutsche Bank. The foreign lessors of the aircraft in the Go First fleet had been locked in a tussle with the company after they were blocked from repossessing their planes due to a moratorium imposed by Indian courts. A local court, however, had in April allowed them to take back their planes. And there's also news coming from fintech player Paytm. India's fintech major Paytm is now looking to expand its business in the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and Singapore. Paytm Cloud Technologies Limited, or PCLT, a wholly owned subsidiary of 197 Communications, aims to take Paytm's merchant payments and financial services to international markets that show a strong demand for digital finance solutions. Paytm intends to invest up to 20 crore rupees in each new subsidiary. It also expects to complete the incorporation of these subsidiaries in these markets within 6 months. The subsidiaries will fall under PCTL, which will own 100% of the shares. Company sources have reiterated that no additional government or regulatory approvals are pending, thus ensuring a smooth expansion. The subsidiaries will operate in the payments and financial services sector, reflecting Paytm's core focus is India. Well, with that, it's time to head into a quick break. But coming up on the other side, a rolling coverage of Trump 2.0. And further on, we will discuss what the new Trump presidency means for trade with India. Joining me on the show will be Mohandas Pai and Dr. Srinath Sridharan. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
Is IGI certified? Your legacy is IGI certified. Your ambition is IGI certified. Your diamond is IGI certified. Authentic moments need authentic diamonds. Get your diamonds IGI certified. 14-step grading process. 50 years of trust. IGI Trust Certified.
Mama must be missing us, na?
Let's keep on spin, give me one day. Feel the itch under my skin, it's a one day. You been like when you see we end up, hey. It doesn't matter, just gotta get going.
New GT line, Taigun and Virtus. Volkswagen.
ये बड़ा होके मम्मी का, पापा का, दादू का सबका ध्यान रखेगा।
रिटायरमेंट के बाद किसी पे बोझ ना बनने का परफेक्ट प्लान। कैनरा HSBC लाइफ इंश्योरेंस रिटायरमेंट प्लान। कैनरा HSBC लाइफ इंश्योरेंस, प्रॉमिसेस का पार्टनर।
It's not the fiefdom of politicians; they owe it to the people.
Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest.
Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
Day ever. I'm excited to see Trump back.
And hopefully get a chance to see him participate in victory celebration.
I'm thrilled to be back. We are going to make America great again.
All right, and Donald Trump is back at the United States as its 47th president, and we will bring you some glimpses of what he said at his inaugural address yesterday in Washington. Well, like I told you, Donald Trump took the oath of office as the 47th president of the United States inside the rotunda of the US Capitol on Jan 20th with the promise to push the limits of executive power, deport millions and millions of immigrants, as he puts it, secure retribution against his political enemies, and transform the role of America on the world stage. The swearing-in ceremony of the incoming president, which traditionally takes place at the Capitol's West Lawn, had moved indoors owing to a frigid forecast arising out of the Arctic storm in sub-zero temperatures in Washington. Incoming Vice President J.D. Vance has also been sworn in. Immediately after his inauguration, Donald Trump delivered his inaugural speech in which he announced the sweeping executive orders for day one of his second term. He followed that up with a second speech after witnessing the presidential parade, where he signed as many as 80 executive orders to reverse actions taken by the Biden administration.
I don't think they will. I don't think they can.
After a slew of executive orders and border promises on day one, Trump vowed to keep America safe. He said he will take bold action to secure border and protect American communities. This includes ending Biden's catch and release policies, reinstating Remain in Mexico, building the wall, ending asylum for illegal border crossers, cracking down on criminal sanctuaries, and enhancing vetting and screening of aliens.
Foreign policy is a big statement. I mean, my priority on foreign policy, it's going to be to keep America safe. Very simple. It's a big question, though. That's a very big question.
Who is going to be the first foreign leader that you plan to meet, or who are you going to call tomorrow on your first day?
I've already been meeting people. I've been meeting them. I've been talking to them. I met with Prime Minister Trudeau, who I call Governor Trudeau. I met with numerous foreign leaders.
And Donald Trump, in his first executive announcement, said that the national emergency was being declared at the US-Mexico border and that all illegal immigrants would be deported back to their home country. Mexico, in turn, on Monday announced a project called Mexico Embraces You to provide support to Mexican citizens who could be deported from the United States. Take a look.
First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country.
Well, Trump also cast himself as a peacemaker in his second inaugural address, but immediately vowed that the United States would be taking back the Panama Canal. He said that the canal was given to Panama and not to the Chinese, who now control the canal. Take a look.
We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
And as expected, US President Donald Trump officially announced the creation of an advisory group aimed at carrying out dramatic cuts to the US government. The group, dubbed DOGE, or Department of Government Efficiency, is being co-run by Tesla chief Elon Musk and has grandiose goals of eliminating entire federal agencies and cutting 3/4 of federal government jobs. But minutes after the announcement, DOGE was sued by government employee unions, watchdog groups and public interest organizations.
Today, Donald Trump signed a document that says the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, begins its work. This is a group that will have a 2-year mandate. It's going to be run by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. There's a bit of controversy around it because right off the bat, like literally a minute after Trump started office, the DOGE was sued by several organizations that say it lacks transparency. They're troubled because what's going on is that it operates in an environment where nobody knows who has been hired, nobody understands what its remit is, and so there's a lot of questions about what the DOGE is going to do. So far, what Trump has said, what Musk has said, is the DOGE will save $2 trillion from the annual budget, which is a tremendous amount of money in about a $6 trillion budget. They've also said it's going to streamline government, it's going to cut jobs, it's going to cut regulations, and it's also going to make suggestions for how government just overall can be better run. Elon Musk is controversial. His role in this commission is quite controversial because he has billions of dollars of contracts with NASA and other parts of the United States government, Department of Defense for one. So the question that a lot of people have, critics of the DOGE have, is he going to be cutting places in the budget that where then he can swoop in and sign a contract for cheaper and make money for his own organization? So there's questions about significant conflicts of interest between DOGE, his companies, and Elon Musk.
All right, so Donald Trump is back at the White House, but what does his re-entry after a 4-year period and becoming the 47th president of the United States mean for bilateral trade and his equation with India? Joining me to discuss that this morning is Mohandas Pai, Chairman, RN Capital, and Dr. Srinath Sridharan, policy researcher and corporate advisor. Mr. Pai, let me begin by asking you this one fundamental question that emerged as part of the inaugural speech of Donald J. Trump yesterday. Can we now safely assume that climate change and all talks around climate change are now history because the Paris Climate Agreement is at risk, if not over and obsolete already, and there is absolute clear-cut focus on fossil fuels? What does this mean for climate change, something that has been the toast of town and for policy advisors across the world for the last many years now?
Look, my view is that climate change is happening around the world and the world is taking steps. Corporations are taking steps, societies are taking steps, countries are taking steps. But the sad thing is, the entire matter has been captured by these climate extremists who are trying to bring about, regulations that are hurting people. Like in the UK, it's hurting people and people don't have money. It's forcing change at a pace not required. I think we've got to temper it down, and that's what Donald Trump is going to do. You cannot do away with fossil fuel altogether. And if you just cut down on fossil fuel exploration, you're going to increase prices to a point when people cannot survive. I think we got to moderate it, and this will possibly moderate what is happening. But the long-term move towards reducing carbonization is going on. I think there's been tremendous progress, and progress is going on. In the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to see greater progress. And in the US, many corporations, almost everybody is working towards that. So I don't think this is going to have a major impact, except for those climate extremists who may not possibly not get the kind of money that they were aspiring for their pet projects. So I'm not worried about that, because I think the secular trend towards reducing carbonization is very, very huge all across the world.
But with the US not respecting, let's say, the Paris Climate Agreement, is there going to be more pressure on developing economies like India to cut their carbon emissions?
I don't think so, because, the US government has very little to do, in my view, because it's all private corporations, right? Private corporations are doing it, and their, technology is coming on. The EV revolution is on, and natural gas is there in a huge way, which will reduce carbon emission substantially. So I think all the things are working very right. What President Trump possibly does not want to be held hostage by a few set of NGOs who try to determine the future by pushing pressure on people through the media and otherwise. So I think it's time for things to be cooled down a little bit, to evaluate and to go on. I'm not so worried on this score.
Okay, you're not worried, Srinath Sridharan. Let me bring you into this discussion. Drill, baby, drill. We heard that again from POTUS. Donald J. Trump yesterday, and he's saying that the new Green Pact is going to go. The EV target of 2030, 50% of US fleet to be EV by 2050 is out of the window, and the focus on fossil fuel is going to be back. What does this mean for US wanting to export its own petroleum and natural gas to countries like India and India's trade surplus with the US?
So, Karthik, I think the green is caught between the red and the blue in the US. I think that's very, very clear. I don't think India needs to worry about anything around sustainability or climate change, because we have made far better progress than almost any part of the world, be it renewable energy as a large proportion of our total energy consumption. But US very clearly is moving back to what I call the old lobbies. I mean, the only thing that I have not heard in the last couple of months of the campaigning is the gun lobby coming up. Otherwise, you've heard about tariffs on pharma, the drug lobby, the tech lobby, the entire now the narrative around oil. The conventional US lobbying has been all around these big bucks industry. And I think what it is also going to try and do is, if you remember last year, they were very frenzied, the conversations around the so-called US-Saudi Arabia pact of buying oil. Then we all realized that there was not a pact at all. I think very clear Saudi and US are moving far more closer. I think the oil is here to stay. And I think let's also do a step back. I think a lot of poll promises that President Trump has made, I think we should wait and watch for the next 100 days to figure out how many of them are actually enforceable. Because half an hour after his swearing in, the very first legal suit has been filed against the entire new idea of Dodge, right? So I don't know how many of them will stand legal scrutiny. His idea of not giving citizenship by birth will hit the legal wall in the US, and a lot of these we'll have to wait and watch. But again, very clearly, I think India is far more stratified. We have one leg with Russia, the other leg with the US. I think we are good to go for time being.
Okay, Mr. Mohandas Pai, let me bring you in very clearly. I think the message that did come, and this is something I asked Srinath also in my previous question, but I think a very clear message was that with fossil fuels, the new Green Deal and the EV target by 2030, 50% of US cars to run on electric seems to be an agenda that Donald Trump does not want to continue with. Is this being done because Donald Trump wants to promote fossil fuels and the natural resources available within US, or is it a bit to thwart the lithium-ion batteries that come from China?
No, I think what he wants to do is to make sure that he uses his natural resources to reduce the deficit. There's a $2 trillion deficit. China had a $1 trillion trade surplus. China is a mercantilist economy which exports at all costs, subsidies from the government. I think there's a problem globally with China's economic management, and the world has to react. And he has to react because he's the largest contributor to China's surpluses. And I think what he's doing is he's making sure there'll be enough oil for the US to become a major exporter, which it was growing up. And the US will not have to import in future. And he's going to use that money and the revenues to reduce the deficit in whatever way he can to balance the economy, which is very important. I mean, we can't have the US borrowing $2 trillion a year all across and running up huge deficits, which we know that they will not be able to pay back. There has to be a rebalanced economy. And to an extent, what he's doing is, I think, very clear.
All right. Srinath Sridharan, let's shift focus now to something that was pretty much a scare and a sense of worry, but Donald Trump did not emphasize too much on it in his inaugural speech yesterday, and that is tariffs. While he did mention that tariffs are going to be on his agenda, he did not repeat the numbers that he had used in his election campaign of 60% tariff on China, 25% on Canada and Mexico, and 20% for the rest of the world. Now, India's effective tariff rate with the US stands at about 3%, but India charges higher tariff for shipments coming from US into India. Now, is retaliatory tariffs a real threat which in the next few weeks could unfold and could hamper India's relationship with US?
The answer is yes, Karthik. It really is a real threat. Tariffs, I think I would probably broad base it as, if you look at the entire narrative around deregulation that the entire West Coast lobby has been pushing the Trump regime for, is I think what is going to happen is tariff tech, the big tech players wanting far greater access globally. I don't know if you've read the AI regime, the new regime that the framework that they released last Monday. President Biden's administration released it. It actually buckets India and China as the third tier country, which would need case-to-case approval even to buy chipsets, GPU chipsets from the US. So I think the nature of using trade for probably far greater access to the market is something that the President Trump, in his businessman capacity, would do. And I'm being a little sarcastic here. The very fact that very few presidents or heads of state have actually personally profited in the week that they're going to take charge, as we saw the entire crypto coin issue. I think this is the nature. He's going to use everything possible of what is good for probably the US, and I'm saying probably the US and for himself as well. And I think there India has to navigate very, very clearly. We have spoken about Web3 and AI as if we are ready. We are not ready. I think our entire STEM ecosystem is still way behind the curve. If we want to be any meaningful AI player in the world, that's one. Two, if we want to do anything in the Web3, there's a lot more Indian government policies that will have to encourage. And the nature of the beast in this is, if you have to buy the hardware from the US, how do we actually break the barrier? Are we going to be forced to give in to allow for the US big techs more market access here? And I think that's going to be the real challenge.
Okay, let's bring in Mr. Mohandas Pai now back. You did talk about, Srinath, you did talk about STEM, and I think that is an area of focus. But Mohandas Pai, let's understand, there was, of course, a crackdown on illegal immigration as part of Trump's inaugural address, but there was absolutely no talk of H-1B visas. So visas, is that something that Indian students and those from the IT sector who happen to work in the US need to worry about, in your opinion?
Well, first, Indian students don't have to worry, but I think there needs to be a tightening of criteria for Indian students to go to the US by the United States. If you look at about 325,000 students, I reckon about 125 have gone for genuine education. The rest have gone there to take some small courses and possibly immigrate or stay in the US. And I think that's a matter of concern for everybody because we don't want this to become a route for immigration by different way. Now, as far as H-1B is concerned, one important event that's happened is the Indian software industry's dependence on H-1B has come down. If you look at the latest data, more American companies are using H-1B than Indian service companies. They have brought it down. They've hired more people locally in the United States. And after COVID, when work from home became ubiquitous, it doesn't matter whether you are in the next street or in the next town or in a different part of the world. Everybody has gotten used to work from home, and that means work remotely, and that means the need for visas has come down. And I think India is well placed as far as the rhetoric goes. But remember, the US has greater amount of risk by tightening up H-1B. The US is short of people. India is a force multiplier for American big tech companies. There, very large number of people are working there. Let me give you some data. Out of 6 million people working in software in America, 1 million are Indians.
Okay.
America has 10 million people working for it globally, out of which additional 3 million are in India, because out of the 6 million working in software export, 50-60% is for American companies. Out of 10 million working for American companies globally, 4 million are Indians. And in the free world outside China, 50% of software hiring is happening in India.
Right.
I mean, India is a force multiplier, the provider of high quality human capital. And the US does something like that. All the American companies set up offshore centers here, like the GCs are set up in the last 2 years.
Right.
Look at the extra. So America will lose out big time. And I think they understand that very well, because there's no country in the world which can support American technology's domination by providing human capital. There's no other country. Let's be very clear. America requires India to take on China. Now, China is constrained because of the Chinese firewall. But if you look at the innovation in AI in China, you look at what Alibaba, Tencent, others are doing, it's unbelievable. The kind of money they're spending on technology, on AI is out of the world, much more than the United States. So the only way America can compete with India. So, there could be slight dislocation, slight noise, but I'm not overtly worried. Because remember, the tech lobby is very strong, and the tech lobby needs people, high quality people, and they have to compete. So I think it's a win-win. So that is not a worry for me as much as it was in Trump 1.
All right, not as much of a worry as it was in Trump 1, but staying with the subject of human resources, I think, Srinath, there's also another aspect which Trump was fairly vociferous about in his inaugural address, and this was this entire debate of diversity, equity, inclusion. So will DIE out? Will diversity die out under Trump 2.0? In his speech, he said there are going to be only 2 genders that his administration is going to recognize, but he also asked his administration to be colorblind and really make appointments and promotions on the basis of merit. But this entire inclusion and this entire diversity debate, is that something that is pretty much now a chip of the old block? It's not going to come back?
So not really, Karthik. I think he's addressing to a certain demographics, and I think that's a narrative that he's using. The reality is DEI is natural, is equality based, and that's something that everybody has to understand, whether it is in politics or whether it is in corporate world. When we say ESG or governance, I mean, it is about that it is being fair and equal to everybody. So what he is talking about, that the binary of genders, is something that probably is his personal view. It is almost akin to somebody speaking about, let's say, the sensitive topic of abortion and the right to abort, right? So some of these will, I think, figure out and probably play back politically as well. If you were to today say DEI in the Indian ecosystem, because we have 2/3 of the generation less than our population less than 35 years of age, DEI is extremely important and very, very sensitive. And we have realized the backlash that one of the corporate leaders faced 2 weeks ago in India for making a comment about work hours. I think President Trump probably will see a pushback. I think one euphoric wave that he's riding today is new bromance with Elon Musk, which is allowing to make comments on X. And I think give it some more time and let's figure out how that works out.
And that relationship is a very interesting one, and I think everybody wants to see how long that plays out and how well it plays out. But Mr. Mohandas Pai, let's keep Elon Musk aside right now. I want to come to the overall strategic play when it comes to investments. Now, Donald Trump also mentioned yesterday that he is going to encourage manufacturing in the US, and that is something that again is directly targeted at China. But with more manufacturing coming in the US, is there going to be pressure to rebalance the trade with India as well? And are we likely to see more pressure to buy US clean energy, to buy US defense? And is there going to be more resistance to our pharma and auto exports going to the US?
First let me address the DI issue.
Okay, let's hear you out.
See, DI has been captured by a small set of people who are extremists. Now, you can't have transgenders go to a woman's toilet, participate in women's sports. It's not done. You got to look after women. Women have equal rights too, right? They were being captured. And the rhetoric was going so far to say a baby born in a family should be taken away and put into foster care. That's the only way we can bring in equality. It's totally absurd. It's captured. What is bringing back, I think, is sanity. And it's very important to bring back sanity, not allow society to be captured by a small set of extremists who are trying to push their agenda because they've got access to power. Now, when you talk about
all this extremism, is it not fair to then invest in more infrastructure for the third gender? I mean, at one level, we want to talk about inclusion and we want to talk about, being gender neutral. But at one level, just a toilet debate cannot ignore the third gender.
Nobody is ignoring the third gender. The third gender has equal rights. This is about people who change their gender. They change their gender because of rhetoric, because of what they have said, because of propaganda, etc. And when they change their gender, children under 18 are forced to cut off their body parts, take drugs which hurt them and is irreversible. And these are not done for children. Let's be very clear about that. It's not about the third gender. If you're born a third gender, you have equal rights in all society. Nobody can discriminate. And I don't think discrimination exists in the matter that people talk about, because you have to exaggerate everything to try to create a narrative. Now, when you talk about tariffs, you talk about things, I think India has to open up to the United States. The US is possibly the second largest or the largest trade partner, because we've got a huge trade surplus, trade deficit with China, more than $100 billion. We have a surplus with the United States and a large surplus in services, and we have to open up. But the key is, what is the US going to sell India from the US economy? Because manufacturing has come down. Defense, yes. we have to get defense from the US. They're sophisticated. The Russian technology is very old and no longer acceptable to a country like India. And two, we need to get high technology from the US. So the US is a market leader. And there are other things which we have to do. Yes, we have to reduce some of the tariffs in our business with the US to demonstrate, because we are getting tariff-free access for a large number of what we export. So I think India has to open up. Maybe it will force India to open up. India's problem in trade is not the US, it is China.
Right.
Because the China is dumb. The Americans don't dumb. Americans know what is ROI, profits, etc. They got quarterly results they have to give out. They will not dump. So we need Americans. But China is the big enemy for global trade because they're dumb, they're mercantilists, they're $1 trillion surplus.
Absolutely.
$1 trillion.
While I understand the China debate, Srinath Sridharan, last word to you. We are running completely out of time. I want to understand if US is one country that India enjoys a trade surplus of about $35 billion with, in the overall trade deficit scenario, it's not something, the pressure from US to buy more US produced goods and services, including oil, I don't think that is going to do Indian economy any good, would it?
So not really, Karthik. I mean, it's a trade-off, right? It's a zero-sum game. I mean, you're not going to buy just because you want to buy. You're going to buy because there is a need, and you will have to balance, I think, the geopolitical volatilities. The reality is, I think India has kind of showed that it is smart at least in the last 3 years. We have seen the Red Sea issue, the Ukraine issue happening, the Israel-Hamas issue happening, and yet we are balanced. And in fact, if I were to call it out, it's a Western hypocrisy, right? You had countries like Germany actually beating the sanctions and buying Russian oil through India. Yes, India did see an opportunity to profit from it, but the reality is, I think India has to navigate this balance.
Right.
And I think prudently, we have also had the regional blocks, right? The Quad and the other things that we have been part of. And I think one thing we missed out, I just want to make a point, is will President Trump dismantle the multilateral institutions like the UN, because he's been bullying almost every single multilateral
He's pulled
institution.
out of WHO, so that doesn't seem like a very far cry, Srinath. I think that is something that we may see happen in the next few days, if not a few weeks. But gentlemen, with that, we've run completely out of time. But thank you so much for taking time out and joining us on this very important debate early morning today, just a day after Donald Trump took oath as president of the US. With that, it's a wrap right here on Morning Brief at 9. News and updates continue right here on News 9 Live at 10 o'clock. Join Shriya Kundu as she brings you what's the latest. Thanks for watching.
We won! We won!
This is the best day ever. I'm excited to see Trump back.
And hopefully we get a chance to see him participate in a victory celebration.
I'm thrilled to be back. We are going to make America great again.
Mama must be missing us, nah?
Let's take it for a spin, give me one day. Feel the itch under my skin, it's a fun day. You be like when you see we in the hey. It doesn't matter, just gotta get going.
New GT line, Taigun and Virtus. Volkswagen.
I will take you to Paris. Paris नहीं, Paris. तुम्हारा pronunciation भी ना, तुम्हारे इरादे की तक.
मैडम इरादे कभी ऑफ नहीं होते, टेक ऑफ करते हैं। SBI Life Smart Platina Supreme के गारंटीड रिटर्न से करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे। SBI Life, अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए।
Valuations can be frothy. Going public is almost like what some of us would like to say is the holy grail, right? IPOs are a trend, not a bubble.
Do secondary markets exist? Answer is absolutely yes, and it's been around for a very long time.
Valuations could be high or low, and valuations may correct over time, but IPOs are here to stay. It is basically a graduation ceremony of sorts. It is potentially where a startup stops being a startup and starts becoming an enterprise.
The IPO space has just started in the past 24 months. The startup ecosystem has been around for 15 years.
Fundamentally, if you have a strong business and you have predictability of cash flows and you can actually give with a fair degree of confidence where the business is headed, the market will reward you.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
We made history for a reason tonight.
Will it change the shape of American foreign policy? Violence has erupted in Manipur once again. How can we pass judgment, sir, before any inquiry that, they were volunteers or militants, sir?
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people. Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest. Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
Very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. You're watching News 9. I'm Sriya Kundu here with all the latest updates and the top stories of the day from across the nation and around the world. We begin the bulletin on this day, right a day after Trump has in fact taken his oath as the 47th President of the United States of America. Well, we'll get into that story in depth, but let's quickly take a look at the headlines for the day first. Donald Trump takes oath as the 47th President of the United States of America for his second term at a glittering ceremony in Washington, saying America's golden age begins. From Modi, Netanyahu to Putin, world leaders congratulate Trump on becoming the 47th US President. Trump signs a series of executive orders to curb immigration, roll back environmental regulations, withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord and declare illegal immigration a national emergency. And that's not all. There are several more which we'll take you through. Donald Trump signed an executive order to withdraw from the ambitious Paris Agreement on climate change, a fulfillment of a campaign promise. Moving on to the national arena, Mumbai police in fact collects multiple fingerprints of the accused Shahzad from various spots as parts of the probe into the January 16 knife attack on Bollywood actor Saif Ali Khan. Earlier, police recreated the crime scene at 3 spots. BJP to release the second part of their Sankalp Patra for Delhi polls today, that is the manifesto. Now, second part may in fact focus on youth, is what we have learned. Income tax conducts raids on film producer and chairman for Telangana Film Development Corporation, Dil Raju's properties, including his office and homes in Hyderabad. According to sources, the raids were carried out at 8 different locations. At least 4 miscreants killed and 1 STF inspector injured after an encounter breaks out between Uttar Pradesh's Special Task Force and miscreants in the wee hours. Karnataka BJP MLA Basavanagowda Patil Yatnal stirred controversy with claims suggesting that former Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru may have orchestrated the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we begin our bulletin with the top focus of the day, which definitely remains to be Donald Trump having been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States of America. And what he has called is the beginning of the golden age. Again, a remark from him not just yesterday itself when the oath ceremony took place, but a promise from him on the 5th of November 2024 when he was elected by the people of the US as the 47th president. Well, let's take you through the story in depth. Donald J. Trump was sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, marking a stunning comeback after 4 years in political exile. On day one of his return to the White House, President Donald Trump has rolled out a first wave of executive orders, delivering on promises from the campaign trail and setting a bold new direction for his administration. Now, let's in fact take you through some of these orders and some which are extremely crucial at this given point when we speak of what lies ahead for the people of the United States of America, not just America, but also worldwide. Among the sweeping measures in the deployment of troops to the southern border, declaring it an effort to stop what he calls immigrant invasion. Trump has also formally classified drug cartels as terrorist organizations, escalating the fight against cross-border crime. In a move that has drawn global attention, Trump announced that the Gulf of Mexico will now be referred to as the Gulf of America and vowed to take back the Panama Canal. Turning to domestic policies, President declared a state of emergency in the energy sector to stimulate production and reduce reliance on the foreign energy sources. He also signed an executive order committing to the freedom of speech, aiming to end what he describes as state censorship. One of the most controversial orders involves officially recognizing only two genders, male and female, as a part of the US policy, sparking an immediate backlash from activists and legal experts. Now, these actions accompany Trump's earlier declaration of a national emergency at the border and his pledge to end the birthright citizenship and catch and release. With these sweeping changes, Trump administration is signaling a transformative agenda, reshaping immigration, energy, and even America's stance on global and social issues. The world is watching closely, ladies and gentlemen, as this new era unfolds, not just impacting USA, but also, to an extent, the world order at this given point.
Foreign policy is a big statement. I mean, my priority on foreign policy, it's going to be to keep America safe. Very simple. It's a big question, though. That's a very big question.
Who is going to be the first foreign leader that you plan to meet, or who are you going to call tomorrow on your first day?
I've already been meeting people. I've been meeting them. I've been talking to them. I met with Prime Minister Trudeau, who I call Governor Trudeau. I met with numerous foreign leaders. Greenland is a wonderful place. We need it for international security. And I'm sure that Denmark will come along. I think it's costing them a lot of money to maintain it, to keep it. The people of Greenland are not happy with Denmark, as you know. I think they're happy with us. We had representatives, my son had representatives, went up there 2 weeks ago, and they like us. So we'll see what happens. But Greenland is necessary, not for us, it's necessary for international security. You have Russian boats all over the place. You have China boats all over the place, warships. Well, we're going to try and get it done as quickly as possible.
Do you want to push Israel and Saudi Arabia?
It should have never started. You know, the war with Ukraine and Russia should have never started. It would have never started if I were president. I don't think I have to push him. I think it's going to happen, but maybe not quite yet. But it'll end up being in the Accords, the Abraham Accords.
President Trump,
I think Saudi Arabia will end up being in the Abraham Accords.
This year?
Could be, but soon. Not in a very. If China didn't approve it, we could put tariffs on China. Don't forget, China charges us tariffs, and we charge them very little, except for what I did. I put a lot of. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars. But until I came along, China never paid 10 cents to this country. They ripped us off, and they never paid anything. But like if we wanted to make a deal with TikTok and it was a good deal and China wouldn't approve it, then I think ultimately they'd approve it because it would put tariffs on China. Maybe. I'm not saying I would, but you certainly could do that. And if we said, well, if you're not going to approve it, then that's a certain hostility and we'll put tariffs of 25, 30, 40, 50%, even 100%. And if we did that, I think they'd approve it.
Cartels are now going to be seen as foreign terror organizations. Would you think about ordering U.S. Special Forces into Mexico to take them out?
Could happen. Stranger things have happened. You know what a BRICS nation is? Well, you'll figure it out. But, and if the BRICS nations want to do that, that's okay, but we're going to put at least a 100% tariff on the business they do with the United States. You know what the BRICS is, right? You guys know. You know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying.
So
it's not even a threat. In fact, since I made that statement, Biden said, well, they have us over a barrel. I said, no, we have them over a barrel. And there's no way they're going to be able to do that.
This is an executive order relating to
tariffs, those countries, like Spain?
As a BRICS nation, yes. They'll have 100% tariff if they so much as even think about doing what they thought.
Can you explain how it's...
Which, and therefore they'll give it up immediately. So will China give it up. But by pardoning his brother or brothers, by pardoning all of those people that he pardoned, by pardoning J6, the Unselect Committee, they destroyed all of the documents. They deleted all of the information. There's no information. And a lot of the information pertains to Nancy Pelosi because she was given 100, I mean, you know this, it's on tape with her daughter. Nancy Pelosi was responsible for not taking advantage of 10,000 soldiers or 1,000. You wouldn't have you could have used 400. It was a relatively small crowd. It wasn't the crowd that was at the mall, it was a small crowd. So I was a little bit surprised that he did it because it makes him look guilty. I mean, he's going to have to live with it. Now, with that being said, it's unbelievable precedent it creates for a president. But the precedent is unbelievable. Now maybe every president that leaves office, they're going to pardon every person they ever met so they don't have some lunatic like deranged Jack Smith, who's a total lunatic, by the way. Not a smart guy, he's a dummy. But we beat the hell out of him. And I helped my reputation.
Now, the foreign ministers of Quad countries will meet in here on January 21st, a day after the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th US president, making it one of the first foreign policy acts of the new administration. Quad ministerial meeting is intended to signal that the US commitment to the Indo-Pacific will not change under the new administration. This is expected to be the first major interaction in the meeting of the new administration with foreign leaders. Now, as Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th US president for a historic second term on Monday, world leaders extended their wishes and congratulatory messages as Trump took the oath at office. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated his dear friend Trump on his inauguration and wished him a successful term ahead. Taking to platform X, Prime Minister Modi has said, and I quote, "Congratulations, my dear friend President Donald Trump, on your historic inauguration as the 47th President of the United States. I look forward to working closely together once again to benefit both our countries and to shape a better future for the world. Best wishes for a successful term ahead." Now, Prime Minister Modi did not attend the inauguration ceremony at Washington, which was attended by several world leaders. Instead, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar represented India as the Prime Minister's special envoy. Well, those were all the top stories that we had for you of day one of Trump 2.0. We will bring you all the latest updates through the day of all the important developments around the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. But right now, we're shifting our focus and getting you back to the domestic arena at this point. Investigation into the shocking stabbing of Bollywood actor Saif Ali Khan continues to make significant progress as the Mumbai police have taken the accused Mohammad Shariful Islam Shehzad to Khan's residence for a critical crime scene recreation. In this latest development, gathering information on how Shehzad managed to escape after attacking Saif and how he in fact reached the Bandra railway station. Early this morning at 5 a.m., police made their first stop at the Bandra railway station where the accused was captured on CCTV. Next, the police team brought the accused to Saif's apartment, Sadhguru Sharan. Notably, while entering Saif's building, Shehzad was not captured on any surveillance cameras, raising questions about his movements. Now, after recreating the crime scene, Shehzad exited from Saif Ali Khan's residence. We're bringing to you all the explosive details of how this entire incident exactly panned out inside the residence. Local society was in fact informed in advance to ensure minimal disruption for the residents, with the committee suggesting that the police come in the morning rather than at night, which is why it was done early morning today itself. During this process, some police personnel were present in the CCTV control room to analyze how Shehzad could enter the building without being recorded on CCTV. They also had him wear a similar bag to the one he was carrying during the very attack. Moreover, multiple fingerprints of the accused have been collected from various spots during the very investigation as well. Once the crime scene was recreated at Saif's house, the police escorted him to a spot near the National College where Shehzad had reportedly slept after committing the crime. These are some of the visuals we're bringing to you with regards to the particular accused himself, Shehzad, and how things have been carried out, the different spots which he was taken to for the recreation of the crime scene. And to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, there is an important update that's coming from the doctors team at the Leelavati Hospital, where they have said that Saif Ali Khan will be discharged later in the day today, as his recovery has been remarkable. Moving on now, we take you down south. BJP leader Basavanagowda Patil Yatnal, known for his controversial remarks, started yet another row ahead of Congress's mega convention. BJP leader alleged that Jawaharlal Nehru might have orchestrated Mahatma Gandhi's assassination. Yatnal claimed that Nehru arranged Mahatma's assassination to fulfill his ambition of becoming a dictator. Let's take a look at this excerpt from what he exactly has said. Well, we'll quickly take you through that, but before that, let me cut across quickly to our colleague Gautam Shankar, who's joining us first on the broadcast to bring us more details on this very story as well. Gautam, a very good morning to you. You know, this is a rather explosive statement, a very controversial remark to be made even by an opposition leader at this given point, not only attacking the Congress party right ahead of the mega convention, but there are two major leaders of our country who've been attacked at this particular point, saying that Jawaharlal Nehru was the one to have, planned the entire conspiracy behind killing the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi.
Absolutely, Shreya. Like you rightly put it out there, Basavanagowda Patil Yatnal is known for his frequent controversial remarks. Now, the statement that he's made is saying that Nehru himself may have arranged Mahatma Gandhi's assassination. And to say this just a day before the Congress's mega convention, where they're holding this convention to basically commemorate the centenary of Mahatma Gandhi presiding over the Congress convention, is a big statement coming in and a very controversial one at that. And he also cites reasons for this, saying that there was one bullet fired from Godse which hit Gandhi, but his body had 3 bullets. Now he has raised suspicion about who arranged this. Did Nehru arrange this, is what he's gone on to say. And he also says that Nehru arranged the assassination because he wanted to be a dictator. So very, very controversial remarks coming in from Basavanagowda Patil Yatnal, who is right now, as we know, is gunning for the post of the state president of the BJP, the position which is currently occupied by former Chief Minister Yediyurappa's son, B.Y. Vijayendra here. And he is definitely putting himself in the highlight and making the BJP top brass take notice that he is the one raising the issues within the BJP the work that should be done by Vijayendra, he is the one doing this. That is the kind of message he's sending out with this remark yesterday.
Gautam, to stay with us, let me quickly first take our viewers through the very remarks that's been made by Yatnal as to what exactly has been said by him on this matter.
ಗೋಡ್ಸೆ ಅವರು ಹೊಡೆದಿದ್ದು ಒಂದೇ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಇನ್ನೇ 2 ಗೋಳಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಬಂದು ಗಾಂಧಿಯ ಶರೀರದಲ್ಲಿ 3 ಗೋಳಿ ಅದು. 1 ಗೋಲಿ ನಾಥುರಾಮ್ ಗೋಡ್ಸೆ ಅಂತ ಇದನ್ನು ಒಪ್ತಾರೆ, ಕೋರ್ಟ್ನಾಗೆ ಆಗೈತಿ. ಇನ್ನು 2 ಗೋಳಿ ಯಾರು ಹೊಡೆದ್ರು? ನೆಹರು ಹೊಡ್ಸದ? ನಮಗೆ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಐತಿ ಜವಾಹರ್ಲಾಲ್ ನೆಹರೂನೇ ಗಾಂಧಿನ ಹೊಡ್ಸದ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನೆಹರೂಗೆ ಒಟ್ಟು ಸರ್ವಾಧಿಕಾರಿ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋಂಥದ್ದಿತ್ತು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಗಾಂಧಿನ ಹೊಡ್ಸೋದವರು ಗೋಡ್ಸೆನ ಗುಂಡಿಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಣ ಹೋಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನು 2 ಗುಂಡುಗಳು ಯಾರು? ಇದು ಕೋರ್ಟ್ನಾಗ ಆಗಿದ್ದಿದ್ದು. ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ನ್ಯಾಯಾಧೀಶರ ಮುಂದೆ ಆದಂಥ ವಾದ ವಿವಾದದಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ನೂ 2 ಗುಂಡುಗಳು ಯಾರು? ಹಂಗಾದ್ರೆ ನೆಹರೂನ ಹೊಡ್ಸೋಣ. ಗಾಂಧಿನ ಹೊಡ್ಸೋದವ್ರು ನೆಹರು, ನಾಥುರಾಮ್ ಗೋಡ್ಸೆ ಒಂದೇ ಹೊಡೆದಕ್ಕೆ 2 ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಬಂದು.
Well, that is the exact words of Yatnal with regards to this very matter. Let me quickly cut across back to Gautam, who continues to be with us. Gautam, you know, a comment like this, especially amid already existing controversies with regards to this very leader, help us understand what the BJP's reactions, if at all, on this has been, because we will get to Congress having given a reply when they do. But the BJP, will they be distancing themselves from this particular remark that's been made, or any particular comment that's been made by any of the other BJP leaders on the remarks made by him? And also, has he presented any part of evidence for that matter? It's a rather controversial remark to be have made just as a passing comment on this particular subject. It's a sensitive matter that he's brought up.
Absolutely, Shreya. So there is no real proof that Yatnal has presented for making a statement like this, saying that it was Nehru who actually arranged for Gandhi's assassination there. But keep in mind that even Prime Minister Modi frequently has told BJP leaders to stay away from making any comments about the father of the nation. But yet he's made the statement. So far, there has been no reaction from the BJP on this regard, because they today few central leaders will also be arriving in Bangalore. There will be 3 key meetings that will also happen here as well. But so far, there has been no comment. But I expect the Congress, who will be present at the Congress's mega convention in Belgavi, to have a strong say on this, because everyone from the Chief Minister to Deputy Chief Minister are all present there. This day is supposed to be all about Mahatma Gandhi, and to make this an issue just hours before this sort of unveiling of the Mahatma Gandhi statue there is definitely, it's about the timing of this whole issue is key here. But Basant Gowda Patil, this is not the first time he's also targeted Jawaharlal Nehru here. He had also, I remember back in 2023, he had sparked a row by saying that Nehru wasn't India's first Prime Minister. He had said that it was Subhash Chandra Bose, and he said that British had left India because Bose had instilled fear in them. So this is not the first time he's attacked Nehru as well, and it will be really interesting to see how BJP reacts to this, whether they will back his remark or issue a show cause notice as well, which will also play a bigger role in what really happens in this state leadership issue here in the state as well, Shri.
Absolutely, Gautam. Definitely one will keep a track of exactly what the BJP's reaction is on these comments as well, while we also await Congress's reaction on it. Gautam, thank you for bringing us all those details and insights into this very story. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're now shifting our focus to another story that is now developing at this given point down south. Income Tax Department conducted raids on film producer Dil Raju's properties, including his office and homes in Hyderabad. Raids were carried out at 8 different locations, including the residence of his relatives as well. Now, 55 teams are conducting the search searches at 8 locations simultaneously at his home, his brother Sirish and daughter Hansita Reddy's homes in Banjara Hills, Jubilee Hills. Raids are also taking place at the premises of his business partners. Dil Raju, the chairman of the Telangana Film Development Corporation and producer of movies such as Game Changer, he was recently appointed as the chairman of the Telangana Film Development Corporation by the state government. Recently, Telangana Film Development Corporation